Chapter 861. Wu Yang clapped and laughed. Ha ha, how is it? I knew it. Thunderstorm asked. What kind of, or did you find? Lei Xingfeng said, I don't know either. I only know that there are all kinds of precious ores below. We just need to dig. I've already dug out a cave. Everyone just needs to follow me. Gucci said, I'll go organize it. Lei Xingfeng said, let senior brother Feng and senior brother Xian go. I need a group of people with power people with real bodies to open the way. Gucci said, okay. A group of people followed Xian Feng into the underground cavern. Xian Feng didn't dare to bring them to the surface, only to the underground cavern he had already dug. With Lei Xingfeng as the leader, Wu Yang, Gucci, Thunderstorm, Gao Yi, Lei Xingyao, and the others all released their real bodies and began to dig in all directions. Only by relying on their real bodies could they dig quickly. Very quickly. Lei Xingfeng set up a secret teleportation door. A large number of people gathered and entered. Thousands of practitioners entered. The underground tunnel quickly extended. Large amounts of ores were sucked into the hidden Luin space. The expanded space was quickly filled with countless low-level practitioners. The number had already reached tens of thousands. Behind these low-level practitioners, each of them brought a few normal people, forming a small excavation team. This way the efficiency would be higher. Lei Xingfeng controlled the direction of the excavation. All kinds of ores. It was like an ocean, so those who knew the trade were all shocked. There were too many of them unrecognizable, but this didn't matter. After digging, they directly put it into the hidden Luin space. When it was full, they would return to the mirror world and dump it into the warehouse. In less than 3 days of digging, the entire secret door was basically empty. Everyone entered this continent to dig. The entire secret door went crazy. Lei Xingfeng had already found a large amount of materials he needed. There were both lightning and space types. This time, Lei Xingfeng felt as if he was a mouse that had stepped into a rice jar and was surrounded by good things. This was a huge and rich mine. The most surprising thing was that there were many different types of mines. All types of mines were intertwined together, reaching an inconceivable level. Lei Xingfeng was the commander-in-chief. He led the entire secret sect to dig crazily. One must know how difficult it was to find a mine in the past, but here, there were mines everywhere. There was gold everywhere. Of course, in this world, gold was also a material, but it was only a material. It did not have the function of currency. When the underground network was formed under the guidance of Lei Xingfeng, the entire excavation process became smoother. Countless small holes extended out. Every excavation team was like a groundhog, digging crazily. This was also thanks to their previous experience. The secret sect had once secretly mined the mines of the Mingzhe Alliance. Whether it was the organization, the people, or the various digging tools, they were all extremely well prepared. Lei Xingfeng sometimes wondered where Xingfeng had run off to. Even if he found out that there were countless treasures underground, he would probably go crazy. How much could one person get? The entire secret sect was mobilized. This harvest was huge. No matter what, there was strength in numbers. Moreover, they were all moving underground, so it was relatively safer. In fact, the grassland was still very dangerous. Whether it was herbivores or carnivores, they were all extremely large. Not to mention ordinary people, even low-level practitioners would be in danger if they encountered them. Therefore, no one was allowed to go up for the time being. Of course, other than a few of the secret sect's higher-ups, they were led to the surface by Lei Xingfeng. Wu Yang, Gucci, Thunderstorm, Gao Yi, Lei Xingyao, La Zi, and Xi Zhuan also followed. They were all very curious as to where Lei Xingfeng had run off to. They were immediately dumbfounded. Wu Yang pointed at the wild grass and said, This is grass? La Zi said, This isn't grass. I think it's a tree. Xi and Zhaoluan said, Marshal Uncle La Zi, have you seen this kind of tree before? There are no tree trunks or leaves. La Zi kept shaking his head and said, This is the first time I've seen such a huge grass in my life. It's simply outrageous. I don't understand why the grass is so big. Oh, what is that? Everyone looked up and saw a huge animal with its head lowered eating grass. The thing was dozens of meters long. Its huge head was buried in the grass, and only the crunching sound of eating grass could be heard. Gucci said, like a sheep? A sheep? Everyone was dumbfounded. Was there such a big sheep? In the end, the animal raised its head. It really did look like a sheep. Other than its huge body, it looked too similar to a sheep. Wu Yang said, "All right, I'm thinking that if we hunt such a sheep, will it be enough for everyone in our mystic sect to have a meal?" Lazi could not help but laugh. He said, "That's true. If we kill such a huge sheep, it might really be enough for everyone in our mystic sect to have a meal." "Ha!" Wu Yang said, "Fortunately, we have enough food. Otherwise, we could really hunt." Lei Xingfeng said, "Actually, we can hunt some animals. I wonder if they taste good?" This fellow had returned to his true colors as a foodie. He wanted to try everything. Thunderstorm said, "We can give it a try." Wu Yang said, "Let me try." Lei Xingfeng did not stop him. He was also very curious about how powerful the animals here were. After all, the strength brought by their huge bodies was often astonishing. Even if they were cultivators, they had to be careful. Wu Yang released his true body and directly pounced on the huge sheep. Then, everyone saw a dumbfounded scene. The huge sheep ran away. Its speed was not something Wu Yang could catch up to. One had to know that his true body was extremely heavy. Before reaching 2 true rings, he could not move quickly at all. Wu Yang stood there with a bitter smile. He released his true body and returned to everyone. He said, "I can't hit it at all." Lazi laughed loudly and said, "Hunting with your true body? You still can't hit it. This is really fresh." "Ha! Ha ha!" Wu Yang raised his foot and kicked Lazi. He said, "If you have the ability, come at me." Lazi immediately cowered. He said, "Come on, this place is very evil. It's so big. How can we hit it?" In the end, everyone discussed and decided to use a group hunting method. Everyone stood in a position and did not move. Instead, they attacked the animals that ran to them. After forming an encirclement, Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "I'll drive the animals away." Wu Yang said, "Okay, a few of you hide in ambush. At the same time, don't release your true body." With the size of his true body, it was really nothing on this continent. It was too small. The few of them smiled and took their positions, ready to attack at any time. Lei Xingfeng flew up. There were actually many animals here. Lei Xingfeng did not dare to drive away the really large animals, which are the huge animals that were hundreds of meters long. Even if they ate grass, he could only drive away animals that were less than 100 meters long, such as sheep and deer-shaped, relatively small herbivores. He did not reveal his true body. Instead, he bombarded the animals with thunder and lightning to scare them and make them run. Then, he chose the small animals and used thunder to drive them away. Soon, he drove a deer-shaped animal into the encirclement. This was already a relatively small animal in the vicinity. Its body was 40 to 50 meters long. When it ran, it was truly earth-shattering. The rumbling of hooves caused the entire ground to tremble. This kind of galloping feeling was really incomparably exciting. Even Wu Yang, who was experienced in battle, could not help but be shocked. Lazi just happened to be facing the deer-shaped animal. He focused all of his energy and stared at the animal that was galloping towards him. He could be considered a person who had been in battle for a long time. With such a huge animal charging towards him, his heart could not help but beat faster. Then, a huge hoof stepped on his side and actually set off a small wave of air. Lazi could not help but scold, "Fuck, that's strong." Saying so, he had already released his true body. In an instant, everyone had released their true body. At this time, everyone's strength could be seen. It was very clear that the strongest person, other than Lei Xingfeng, was actually Lei Xian Yao. A huge tree, that deer-shaped animal, seeing that it was surrounded by people who had suddenly appeared, turned in a circle in fear and then rushed towards Lei Xian Yao. Who let Lei Xian Yao have the true body of a tree? She was too friendly. Huh. The deer-shaped animal crashed into Lei Xian Yao's true body. Immediately, it wobbled and spun in circles, directly knocking itself unconscious. Lei Xian Yao could not help but laugh. Countless branches extended from her true body and directly wrapped around the deer-shaped animal, instantly controlling it. Wu Yang shouted, "Good!" Who knew that Lei Xian Yao's branches that were wrapped around the deer-shaped animal suddenly exerted force and directly threw it out of the encirclement. Lei Xian Yao giggled. "Run, if you're smart. Maybe you can escape with your life." She directly let it go. 4 wood elemental cultivators, killing was not part of their nature. Therefore, wood elemental cultivators were naturally gentle people. Wu Yang could not help but shake his head and sigh. However, no one had any objections. Lei Xian Yao's prestige in the secret sect was sometimes even higher than Lei Xingfeng. This was because she had saved countless people. La Zi said, "Ayaya, we can't let the little girl come. She doesn't like killing. It's all for nothing." Lei Xian Yao giggled. "La Zi, sure Shu, if you had attacked from the start, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. But let the little deer come close to me. Since I attacked, then I can only let it go." La Zi helplessly shook his head. "Forget it. If the little girl says to let it go, then let it go. Let's continue, but the little girl doesn't need to stand." Lei Xian Yao said, I don't care." Saying this, she ran to the side. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "If little sister doesn't want to, then forget it. Let's do it again." Thunderstorm said, "Actually, we don't need to form an encirclement. Just stand in a line. As long as a phone can drive one over, then we can attack together." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Okay." Chapter 862. Once again, he flew into the air and used lightning to drive away a sheep-shaped animal that was more than 40 meters long. The sheep-shaped animal was frightened by the lightning and quickly rushed to the front of the group. They released their true forms at the same time and started attacking. Thunderstorm punched. This punch still had lightning on it. With a boom, the sheep-shaped animal stopped. This punch did not cause much damage, but the lightning on the fist made the sheep-shaped animal tremble. Wu Yang punched fiercely. Gucci, Gao Yi, La Zi, and Xinzhouan all attacked. Their fists were originally huge, but the sheep-shaped animal was not small at all. Therefore, it was beaten until it cried out in pain. Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He said, "It's actually so hard to fight." One had to know that although these people's strength couldn't be compared to his, their combat strength wasn't bad. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng was on guard. This place was a little evil. He did not say much and immediately released his true form. He took a few steps forward and punched fiercely. With a loud boom, he directly smashed the giant sheep's head. At the same time, he said, "Go back. All of you go back. Withdraw your true forms and return to the ground immediately." His tone was very hurried. Wu Yang and the rest could not react. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is a herbivore, and it's already so hard to fight. If it were a carnivore, how will we deal with it? Go back quickly." Wu Yang and the rest were shocked. They only reacted now. Perhaps Lei Xingfeng was not afraid, but their strength was really not enough. No one picked up the lost giant sheep. They immediately withdrew their true forms and turned to run. Fortunately, the whole dug was nearby. Everyone immediately passed through the restriction and went underground. Lei Xingfeng stood guard at the back. In fact, after the giant sheep was killed, the smell of its blood had already spread. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw wolf-shaped beasts approaching. They were all huge beasts. There were also extremely huge flying beasts circling in the sky. Lei Xingfeng withdrew his true form and quickly flew back. Several large beasts quickly found the dead giant goat and began to fight over it. Their roars shook the wild grass. Lei Xingfeng entered the restriction and said, "Let's just focus on mining. Don't worry about anything else. We'll dig as much as we can." Wu Yang said, "Yes, a phone, don't worry. As long as I have enough time, I can empty it out." Hearing this, Lei Xingfeng broke out in a cold sweat. People from poor places were really ruthless. They all had the determination to exterminate them. He said, "Grandmaster, it's impossible to empty them out. We don't have much time. Everyone, hurry up." Gucci said, "Don't worry, a phone. We will work very hard." Everyone went underground again. Lei Xingfeng remained in the restriction, secretly observing the situation outside. The giant goat's corpse was surrounded by wolf-like beasts. The sound of fighting and tearing was extremely loud. Lei Xingfeng was secretly shocked. Although he didn't use his full strength in the attack just now, he was quite surprised by the sturdiness of the giant goat's skull. Lei Xingfeng didn't care because he was strong. At the same time, he could return to the mirror realm at any time. He wasn't afraid of being surrounded by the beasts here. However, Wu Yang and the others were in a more dangerous situation. The people from the secret sect basically couldn't survive on this continent. With this knowledge, Lei Xingfeng began to be careful. He didn't dare to let the people from the secret sect come to the surface. If they were targeted by the beasts, the people from the secret sect wouldn't be able to resist. Soon, the giant goat was torn to pieces. The wolf-like beasts ate the meat and then lazily left. Lei Xingfeng estimated that in less than 10 minutes, his hair stood on end. The beasts here were completely different from the ones he imagined. However, with his strength, there was no problem for the time being. He hadn't seen any beasts that were as strong as him. But just these beasts alone were enough for him to be careful. Lei Xingfeng didn't continue to stay on the surface for the time being. Instead, he went down to the underground mine. The entire mine was already connected. A few main pits were connected to countless small tunnels. Countless people from a secret sect were frantically digging. Here, low-level cultivators were leading normal people to excavate. The advantage of having low-level cultivators was that they could protect normal people when there was danger. For example, if a falling stone fell on a cultivator's head, it wouldn't be a problem. However, if it fell on a normal person, it would be fatal. The excavated ores were also placed in the low-level cultivator's hidden Luin space. Although their hidden Luin space wasn't very big, they didn't have to carry the ores away one by one. As long as the low-level cultivators collected the ores and filled up their hidden Luin space, they would just have to make a trip and send the ores away. In addition, the supplies were also carried by the low-level cultivators. With the hidden Luin space, a group of excavators was a good combination. Some of the excavators even brought steel puppet beasts. There were also large steel spiders. These were all auxiliary methods. Under the command of the experts from the secret sects, the entire operation was organized and orderly. The efficiency was many times better than a swarm of bees. Wu Yang said, "A phone, we still need to check the direction of our excavation. The main thing is the direction of the large or veins. We have to confirm it. This way, the efficiency will be higher." This time, even Exine Yao was excavating. She released her real body and directly opened up a huge space. Countless roots extended from the big tree and pierced into the rocks. As they moved forward, large pieces of ores were peeled off. The surrounding excavators all went forward to clean up the ores. Everyone had their own unique skills. For example, La Zi used fire to burn, and Gao Yi used ice to attack. They easily shattered countless ores. However, there were too few high-level cultivators. There were only about 10 people who could be the main excavators. They were responsible for excavating the largest tunnels. Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Okay, I'll go up and search. I'll come back and tell everyone." This time, Lei Xingfeng didn't go through the tunnel. Instead, he used the Mirror Realm's secret door to return to the surface. Because he didn't release his real body, he walked in the bushes. Quietly flying above the bushes, Lei Xingfeng began to observe the mane or veins on the ground. He recorded them with the Star Python record and flew down. Gradually, he got further and further away from the mining area. Then, he saw a familiar light. This kind of light from the ground represented many different meanings. Lei Xingfeng gradually understood some of the mysteries, especially one kind of light that left a deep impression on him. It was the light from an energy or vein. A large energy vein appeared, causing Exine Feng to be overjoyed. If one were to talk about the materials that practitioners use the most, it would be energy crystals. In his hometown or outer space, natural energy crystal ores were the rarest. Once such ores appeared, practitioners would immediately dig them all up, leaving not a single bit behind. Every cultivator needed energy crystals. This was their motivation, just like energy in his previous life. Lei Xingfeng excitedly rubbed his hands. Other materials were fine. Some people could use them, while others couldn't. However, there was a huge amount of energy crystal ores that every cultivator needed. Looking at the location marked on the star python record, Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to continue investigating. He immediately opened the secret door and returned to his original position. Wu Yong was surprised. "You're back so soon? How is it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's a large natural energy crystal mine. Be careful when you excavate. I think there should be treasures inside. Energy crystal-type treasures. Don't damage it. Here's the map." Wu Yang's eyes lit up. A natural energy crystal mine. This was a material that every cultivator in the secret door wanted. Moreover, it had sufficient energy and could quickly increase one's strength. He was pleasantly surprised. "How big is it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Just dig along it. I can't see the end." Wu Yang shouted, "Okay." For even him to lose his composure, the importance of this energy was obvious. Holding the star python record, Wu Yang ran off like a wisp of smoke. He needed to gather the upper echelons of the secret door and immediately organize people to dig in the designated location. He knew very well that Lei Xingfeng would set off at some point. At this time, there was no time to waste. The entire secret door was in an uproar. Every cultivator, especially the low-level ones, might be asked what they lacked the most. There might be a variety of answers, but when it came to energy crystals, there was only one answer. Very few, very few. If they could get their hands on even a little, it would be kept as a treasure. They usually used extremely ordinary energy. As for natural energy crystals, very few low-level cultivators could get their hands on such high-grade goods. Hearing that there was such a mine, everyone was ecstatic. Wu Yang didn't need to mobilize them. Even the upper echelons of the secret door were unusually excited. Under Wu Yang's command, the huge secret door began to dig in the direction of the energy vein. Lei Xingfeng originally wanted to go out and investigate, but after thinking about it, he went to the front of the excavation. One had to know that he was the strongest, and his true body was also the strongest. When it came to digging, no one could beat him. A huge tunnel was excavated. Lei Xingfeng knew the location of the energy vein. With him as the arrowhead, they dug forward at an extremely fast speed. Behind them, a large group of people quickly cleaned up the excavated ore. Of course, this was not an energy ore, but a different kind of ore that could not be discarded. As Lei Xingfeng dug, a tunnel of 100 meters appeared. Lei Xingfeng's two hands were like giant excavators. The giant hands were made of energy and directly inserted into the ore. With a gentle pull, countless pieces of gravel fell down. This kind of efficiency was the highest in the secret door. Lei Xingfeng did not say a word. His two hands were like wind and fire wheels, swinging and digging. The people following behind saw a huge tunnel appear. Wu Yang and the others helped to clean up. From time to time, they would watch Lei Xingfeng dig. Wu Yang sighed, "This strength is simply terrifying." Chapter 863. Thunderstorm smiled proudly. Gucci couldn't help but say, "A phone has solved our hidden sex problem this time." In fact, they had enough energy crystals. Lei Xingfeng had obtained a lot of stalagmites. The stalagmite crystals were of a higher grade than the crystals here, but they were only enough for high-level cultivators. Low-level cultivators generally lacked energy crystals. As long as there was enough time, the entire hidden sect would have enough energy crystals. Moreover, a large amount of energy crystals stored in the mirror realm would be greatly beneficial to the development of the mirror realm itself. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng paused and said, "Found it." Large pieces of or containing energy crystals were excavated. As Lei Xingfeng moved forward, the quality of the ore became better and better. Lei Xingfeng stopped and withdrew his real body. He said, "Okay, you can continue digging. Follow this direction and go all the way down. The others will dig to the sides. I believe you can handle it." Wu Yang said, "Don't worry about it. Go outside and continue searching." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Wow, free labor." Gucci said, "Go, go, go. Find a few more valuable mines." Lei Xingfeng rolled his eyes. How can there be such a good thing? Everyone laughed. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. The ore here is enough to dig for a long time. Even if I find other large mines, we don't have the manpower to dig them. Wu Yang nodded. Let's do our best to dig this mine clean first. We'll talk about the rest later. Thunderstorm said, this natural energy mine is too important. A phone, try to stay here for a while. Lei Xingfeng nodded. Okay, of course. He wouldn't leave immediately with such a good thing. He estimated that even if he went outside, he might not be able to find a large natural energy mine. Even if he found one, they might not be able to dig it. No cultivator would easily give up a natural energy mine. Once they found one, they had to fight for it. It wouldn't be strange if a fight broke out over it. Lei Xingfeng opened the secret door of the realm of mirrors and went out again. This time, he planned to go to other places to take a look. Perhaps there would be more good stuff. Lei Xingfeng vaguely felt that this continent was quite strange. He needed some time to carefully search and find out the mysteries within. As for what secret it was, Exine Feng didn't know either, but he knew that it would be strange if this continent didn't have any secrets. This teleportation formation definitely had a purpose. One must know that when he was repairing the teleportation formation, this point was hidden from the public eye. He didn't think too much about it when he was repairing it back then, but now, it seemed like there must be some secrets hidden within. On the plains, Lei Xingfeng discovered that all the species were incomparably huge. Compared to the mountainous areas, this change was even greater. The mountainous areas were slightly better and not as obvious. Exine Feng couldn't stop thinking about what was hidden here. After thinking about it, Lei Xingfeng began to fly high into the sky. He wanted to see the entire continent first. He might not be able to see everything, but he could see a little more clearly. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng was already very high up in the sky, overlooking the ground. At this time, Lei Xingfeng felt that the animals and plants on the ground seemed a little more normal. However, he knew very well how far this place was. The animals that should have been like ants were still very big. Silver light flickered in his eyes. After a moment, Lei Xingfeng let out a long sigh. With just a glance, he had already discovered another energy crystal vein. This place was too rich. Just as Lei Xingfeng was sighing with emotion, an eagle-shaped bird swooped over from a distance. This eagle's body was also incomparably huge. Its wingspan was more than 80 meters, and its speed was extremely fast. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but curse. Feathered beast, I'm so small, and you want to eat me? He raised his hand and struck out a bolt of lightning. This bolt of lightning struck the eagle's body. The eagle immediately let out a sad cry and suddenly fell from the sky. In midair, it struggled to fly again and continued to attack Lei Xingfeng. It was very obvious that it was enraged. Lei Xingfeng also flew down. He didn't want to fight with the giant eagle in the sky. Bolts of lightning streaked across the sky and struck the giant eagle's body. Although the lightning couldn't kill it, it made the giant eagle furious. Its feathers fluttered, and every bolt of lightning made the giant eagle slow down. Lei Xingfeng was shocked to find that the giant eagle was gradually adapting to the lightning attack. Increasing the speed of his descent, Lei Xingfeng had already released Lei Yin when he was close to the ground. Then he released his true body. The moment his true body appeared, its two huge feet landed on the ground with a loud bang. The angry giant eagle was like a giant plane that had lost control, whistling as it slammed into Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng held his breath and instantly poured Lei Yin's power into his true body. He raised his huge fist and faced the incoming giant eagle with a punch. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to be careless with this punch. One had to know that such a heavy and huge eagle swooped down from the sky. Just the impact of the impact alone would be extremely terrifying. This punch was aimed at the giant eagle's head. The giant eagle's head tilted slightly, and its body drooped down. Its two huge eagle claws were aimed at Lei Xingfeng's fist. The giant eagle stood upright, with its two claws in front. It was aiming at Lei Xingfeng's head. Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to change his punch. Both sides were extremely fast, and the punch landed on the giant eagle's claws. Gotcha! Boom! Lei Xingfeng used his full strength, and the giant eagle also used its full strength. However, Lei Xingfeng had two true ring bodies, and his body was made of energy, while the giant eagle was made of flesh and blood. If it could be compared to Lei Xingfeng's fist and claws, the giant eagle's claws would have been broken the moment the fist and claws collided. With a sharp cry, the giant eagle was sent flying by an unparalleled force. It had a taste of what it was like to fight with a true expert. It originally wanted to find some snacks to eat, but it ended up in such a miserable state. The giant eagle endured the pain and flapped its wings, wanting to fly away. How could Lei Xingfeng let it go? Who knew if it was alone or in a group? To Lei Xingfeng, since he had made a move, he might as well kill it. Lei Xingfeng's true body flashed, and he pounced over. He slapped the eagle's wings with his full strength. Once the giant eagle flew into the sky, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't be able to chase after it. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng's goal was to prevent the giant eagle from flying. Boom! Compared to Lei Xingfeng's true body, the giant eagle was still slightly smaller. This slap was extremely heavy, and with the lightning wrapped around it, it was different from the lightning released by his true body. It was countless times purer, which meant that the voltage was extremely high. Crackling sounds could be heard as the huge electric current flashed on the giant eagle's body. Then, the giant eagle's feathers started to burn. Lei Xingfeng took a few steps forward and punched again. This time, he aimed at the giant eagle's head. Pung! The giant eagle's shrill cry was suddenly cut off, and the giant eagle's head exploded. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but shake his head. This place was full of danger. Just one eagle had cost him a lot of effort. He had to use 2 punches and 1 slap to kill it. He was comparable to a human monarch rank expert. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to stay here, and immediately flew away. The wild beasts here would immediately rush over when they smelled blood, and they were especially fast. This time, Lei Xingfeng moved along the river, sticking close to the riverbank. He flew forward at an extremely fast speed. Although there were various animals drinking water here, Lei Xingfeng was fast, and Lei Xingfeng's body was still too small in the eyes of these huge beasts. As he moved forward at lightning speed, the surroundings started to become desolate, and the temperature started to rise rapidly. Lei Xingfeng quickly noticed the change, and he started to fly towards the sky. This way, he could see further. As for whether he would meet the giant eagle or the like, he couldn't be bothered at the moment. Thick smoke rose from afar, and Lei Xingfeng's heart skipped a beat. This was a sign of a volcano. If there was a volcano here, according to the abundance of resources here, the fire-type materials near the volcano would be incredible. He drew a streak of lightning in the sky and rushed over. Like a thunderbolt, Xian Feng's speed suddenly increased explosively. His heart was slightly shocked, but in the next moment, he had already crossed a large distance. This was the effect of the space restriction in the lightning stamp. In an instant, he reached the sky above the thick smoke. There were indeed many volcanic craters below, and they were densely packed together. Huge heat waves crazily surged upwards, forming an updraft that pushed Lei Xingfeng upwards. This area was very big, and Lei Xingfeng couldn't see the end of it except for the way he came. It was all volcanic craters and lava lakes. The red lava flowed freely, forming countless red rivers. Lei Xingfeng continued to fly inside, and soon saw a large lava lake. The size of the lake was so big that it made people speechless. At this moment, a huge blackback suddenly appeared, and it rolled around in the lava lake, splashing countless sparks, and then dived back down. Lei Xingfeng was dumbfounded. There was actually a creature in the lava. This creature's body was also extremely huge, and Lei Xingfeng didn't know how to describe it. After crossing the lava lake, Lei Xingfeng continued to fly inside. Along the way, his eyes flickered with silver light. After careful inspection, he found many fire elemental materials, and there was no lack of precious materials. However, he didn't think of digging for them yet, and continued to circle around this area. As he flew around and looked around, Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He needed to find some suitable materials. Up until now, the materials he had collected were all precious materials. Ordinary materials couldn't attract his attention. If it was in the past, it could be said that there were materials everywhere, and he needed everything. However, at his current level, most of the materials weren't worth his attention. Occasionally, there would be some materials that emitted intense light. Lei Xingfeng would dive down to pick them up or dig them up. He would basically ignore the materials that weren't very tempting. Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound in the distance. Lei Xingfeng looked into the distance and saw large amounts of smoke and dust rising. He thought, is it a volcanic eruption, or is there a battle? Chapter 864. Lei Xingfeng immediately thought of Xingfeng. He should be the one fighting. Only he would come to the place with the most fire elemental materials. Lei Xingfeng's body flashed, and with a thunderous sound, he disappeared from his original spot. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw Xingfeng fighting with a group of outsiders. Just one look was enough to shock him. There were at least 4 outsiders, and 2 more were standing outside. These outsiders had human forms, but upon closer inspection, they did not have many human features. They had 4 limbs, bone spikes on their backs, and black scales on their bodies. Their heads were like snakes, and their necks were rather long. Their bodies were about the same size as the creatures here, and they were all extremely huge. 2 of the outsiders were more than 80 meters long, and the other 2 were slightly smaller, about 60 meters long. If they stood up, although they were shorter than Xingfeng's true body, they were not much smaller. The last 2 outsiders were even bigger. The largest was 100 meters long, and the other was more than 90 meters long. They seemed to be watching the battle from the side. Lei Xingfeng hid about 400 to 500 meters away from the battle. In fact, he was already very close. The 4 of them surrounded Xingfeng. However, Xingfeng wasn't at a disadvantage at all. His attacks were impressive, but it was obvious that he was a bit impatient. Xian Feng understood the reason with a glance. It was because the 2 outsiders standing at the side were too much of a threat. His huge, true body emitted rolling flames, and layers of them appeared. However, the outsiders here were also fire elemental, and they were not afraid of flames. They fought with the strength of their bodies. After all, Xingfeng's body was made of energy, and he had 2 true ring bodies. The energy was endless. In addition, Xingfeng had some special techniques that Dao Saint had. Xingfeng punched and kicked, and the outsiders who got close to him were pushed back. Lei Xingfeng noticed that Xingfeng was not attacking with his full strength. He was still holding back 30% of his strength. When he saw the 2 outsiders, Lei Xingfeng knew that Xingfeng was guarding against a sneak attack. Xingfeng complained incessantly in his heart. He had never thought that there would be outsiders here. Moreover, there were special outsiders who lived in the lava. He had found a treasure in the lava, but it turned out to be an outsider's treasure. Before he could grab it, 6 other outsiders had emerged from the lava lake one after another. The result was not surprising. It was just like when humans met outsiders. When outsiders met humans, as long as they could win, they would fight with their lives on the line. Lei Xingfeng gradually learned that there were many types of outsiders. There were ordinary outsiders and special outsiders. Actually, these outsiders were more like humans. They were born strong, and as time passed, their strength would continue to increase. They were completely different from cultivators. Born and bred, they were naturally powerful. However, very few outsiders knew how to cultivate. Of course, there were some ordinary outsiders who were like humans and had grasped a certain cultivation foundation. However, the ones who could truly become powerful were human cultivators. There were also a very small number of special outsiders who were born with powerful innate abilities. The 6 foreign races here were naturally strong races. In this special environment, their strength far exceeded their peers, and they could already fight with masters with 2 true ring bodies. The more Xingfeng fought, the more depressed he became. The key was that he could not restrain his opponents. Of course, his opponents could not restrain him either. He could forget about escaping. His speed had greatly increased after reaching the 2nd true ring body. However, the others were not slow either. If he did not have his true body, he would not be their opponent. He could only force himself to remain calm. They punched and kicked. After all, Xing Feng was stronger, and the four outsiders did not have the upper hand. At this time, another outsider joined the group battle. It was the 90-meter-tall outsider. His strength was clearly higher than the previous four. Once he joined the battle, the pressure on Xing Feng increased greatly. Xian Feng was already 100 meters away from them. He didn't have any other thoughts other than to ambush them and kill at least one of them. Only then would he be able to maintain the balance. Xing Feng shouted as he fought. In fact, his heart was beating wildly. Although he was still strong enough, his aura had weakened. He was not used to this kind of group battle, especially when the opponents were not weak. He kept circling around, but the enemies behind him were always able to attack him. There was no place to lean against, and Xing Feng was so anxious that he kept roaring. Lei Xingfeng could not help but laugh. Xing Feng was actually very strong, but after being suppressed by his opponents, his aura had plummeted. This guy also had times when he was afraid. Xing Feng wanted to leave, but he could not. He could not win either. He was really in a difficult position. The opponents were very clever. Xing Feng wanted to grab one of them and attack. It would be best if he could kill one of them. However, when he focused on one of them, the other five would immediately help him. The most depressing thing was that he couldn't use his elemental attacks, so he couldn't make a fatal blow. This fatal blow was effective against other elemental outsiders, but it was useless against fire elemental outsiders. This made Xing Feng's greatest trump card useless. Even if he wanted to go all out, it would be very difficult. He had to be able to hit an outsider to death with his fists. The five surrounded Xing Feng like a merry-go-round, punching and kicking. Fortunately, Xing Feng had two true ring bodies and had endless energy. Otherwise, he would not have been able to hold on. Just like this, he was already screaming like a ghost. Xian Feng could no longer move forward. The battle between Xing Feng and the five of them had caused flames and magma to fly everywhere. Xian Feng hid behind a large black rock. This rock didn't even melt in such a hot magma lake. It meant that the material was pretty good. A fire-attributed practitioner would definitely like it. Lei Xingfeng did not wait any longer. When a 90-meter-long outsider was only 10 meters away from him, Lei Xingfeng suddenly exploded. His true body suddenly appeared. He raised his hand and shot out a lightning ball. Then he stepped forward and stood behind the outsider. Without saying a word, he stomped his foot. It was not an exaggeration to say how big this foot was. It was 7 to 8 meters long and was completely made of energy. It was also surrounded by countless lightning bolts. The lightning ball hit the outsider's body and instantly made him tremble. His running body slowed down for a moment. Lei Xingfeng was waiting for this opportunity. He stomped his foot fiercely. Boom! This kick was too fierce. It directly hit the outsider's waist. The 90-meter-long body was directly stomped into the lava, sinking deep into it. With one stomp, half of the outsider's body was stomped into the ground. Then, he swung his other foot and kicked the outsider's face. Boom! This kick accurately landed on the outsider's face. Lei Xingfeng used almost all his strength in this kick. Lei Yin's entire body emitted a dazzling light. This meant that he had used all his strength. These two violent explosions were almost connected. Before the other four people could react, Lei Xingfeng's third attack arrived. This attack was from Lei Xingfeng. He punched the outsider's neck. This was where he was the weakest. Once his neck was broken, he would not be able to live. This change was too fast. Xing Feng was stunned for a moment. Then he heard the explosion. Then he shouted in joy, "Wah, kill him!" When he saw Lei Xingfeng come out, his mental state changed completely. As the saying goes, a dog threatens others with its master's power. This was not only true for dogs. It was the same for humans. Having companions and not having companions were two different states. It was too sullen. Finally, help had come. Xing Feng was so happy that he was about to explode. In the depths of his heart, there was still a trace of hope. He hoped that he could meet Lei Xingfeng. However, this trace of hope was too faint. He did not expect Lei Xingfeng to really appear. Moreover, he attacked as soon as he appeared. Xian Feng's fist landed on that outsider's neck, and with a loud kacha sound, that outsider didn't even make a sound before falling limp. Even if he didn't die, he had lost his ability to fight. The other 4 outsiders were stunned. They never thought that there would be another person, especially one who was so patient. At the most critical moment, he suddenly burst out and hurt them. They simply couldn't react. At this time, Lei Xingfeng had already pounced on another outsider. At the same time, he shouted, "Old Xing, F*CK." Xing Feng shouted and pounced on the same person. The two of them had a tacit understanding. This was formed after being together for a long time. Lei Xingfeng directly pounced on the outsider. He raised his arm and elbowed the outsider. Because the outsider was not walking on his own and was half crawling on the ground, this elbow hit his head. Originally, Lei Xingfeng wanted to use his fist. However, he was too close. Therefore, he used his elbow to attack. In fact, using the elbow to attack was even more ferocious. As long as it hit, the power would be much greater than using a fist. The outsider was terrified. He raised both his arms and blocked in front of him. Pa! Kacha! One of his arms was broken. However, he had successfully blocked Lei Xingfeng's attack. However, blocking Lei Xingfeng's attack did not mean that he had blocked Xingfeng's attack. Xingfeng's fist landed on the outsider's left cheek. With a loud bang, the outsider's head shook crazily like a rattle drum. The strength of this punch had almost sent the outsider's head flying. Lei Xingfeng struck out with his elbow. Then his giant hand grabbed the outsider's arm and pulled. At the same time, he turned around. Boom! An outsider's sneak attack landed on the outsider, who was caught. Xing Feng blocked the other outsider, who was pouncing on Lei Xingfeng. The two of them punched each other and retreated. However, they could not attack Lei Xingfeng. The outsider who was caught by Lei Xingfeng struggled with all his might. However, his strength could not compare to Lei Xingfeng's. After being caught by Lei Xingfeng, the outsider was scared out of his wits. He did not expect that he would not be able to break free. Lei Xingfeng roared. He grabbed the outsider's arm with one hand and grabbed his neck with the other. Then, he lifted the outsider up. Lei Xingfeng was more than 100 meters tall, while the outsider was only 60 meters tall. Although the outsider's body was heavy, Lei Xingfeng could still lift him up. Chapter 865. Finally, the outsider who had been watching coldly from the sidelines made his move. This person should be the most powerful one among this group of outsiders. His target was Lei Xingfeng, because Lei Xingfeng was holding on to an outsider. It could be seen that this expert was very nervous. Without waiting for the outsider to reach him, Lei Xingfeng had already swung the outsider in his hand. His favorite method was to swing heavy objects and smash them. Right now, he didn't have anything heavy in his hand, but there was an outsider. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng swung the outsider. Swinging people and smashing people was Lei Xingfeng's favorite thing to do. His huge true body swung the outsider, and amidst a strange cry, he ruthlessly smashed it towards the incoming outsider expert. Immediately after, Lei Xingfeng discovered that the opponent was actually very nervous. In an instant, he realized that this person should be nervous. The thing in his hand immediately made him feel very good. This meant that he could go all out, and the opponent would be restrained. Smash! Lei Xingfeng swung and smashed the outsider. The outsider's movements were extremely agile. When Lei Xingfeng swung the outsider in his hand and smashed it, he stretched out his hand and pushed the outsider's body, immediately dispersing the huge force. But even so, the outsider was still knocked unconscious. Lei Xingfeng was slightly startled. This person's strength was very high. He quickly made a judgment in his heart. As for who was stronger, he would have to fight to see. Xing Feng, on the other hand, saw an advantage. As long as Lei Xingfeng was entangled with the most powerful outsider, then he could be ruthless to the others. He couldn't do anything against a few outsiders, but against one or two of them, he wouldn't have any problems. When Lei Xingfeng was entangled with the most powerful outsider, Xing Feng began to explode. This guy had been suppressed for a long time and was about to explode. Finally, he found an opportunity and began to madly attack. One must know that this guy's strength wasn't weak at all. Xing Feng violently beat up the remaining two outsiders, while Lei Xingfeng was confronting the outsider. The two didn't make a move. The outsider wanted to help his companions several times, but he was blocked by Lei Xingfeng, and then the outsider kept roaring. The two outsiders who were fighting with Xing Feng wanted to escape, but they were firmly entangled by Xing Feng. At this time, the two outsiders were both injured. Just relying on their fists and feet, the two couldn't resist. Fortunately, Xing Feng's fire attribute was useless against the two outsiders, or his attacks would be even sharper. Lei Xingfeng was confronting the outsider. He had plenty of patience. As long as Xing Feng dealt with the last two outsiders, then the two of them could work together to deal with the most powerful outsider in front of them. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry. The other outsider's mood was completely different. Previously, he was leisurely watching his own people besiege Xing Feng. He planned to go up and deal a thunderous blow after figuring out Xing Feng's methods. However, Lei Xingfeng appeared, instantly killing one and knocking the other unconscious. This made him completely unable to calm down. Moreover, this outsider also discovered that Lei Xingfeng's strength seemed to be even stronger than his. Just now, when he smashed down, even though he had used some skill, his whole body was still numb from the shock. This was also the reason why he didn't dare to immediately rush up. In fact, he already had the thought of retreating. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't want to let him go. There was almost nothing to talk about between human cultivators and outsiders. When they met, they would fight to the death. This was especially true for powerful outsiders. They wouldn't let humans go, and the same went for high-level human cultivators. Lei Xingfeng coldly stared at the outsider. As long as the outsider moved, he would move. The two of them faced each other and stared at each other like this. On the other side, Xing Feng and the other two outsiders were fighting in full swing. All kinds of explosions, all kinds of flames, the fight was chaotic. Lei Xingfeng only had to rely on his intuition to know that although Xing Feng was alone, he was suppressing the other two. Finally, the guy confronting Lei Xingfeng couldn't hold back anymore. If he didn't act now, the two outsiders would be beaten to death by Xing Feng. They were already beaten to a pulp by Xing Feng, screaming in pain. The two of them also wanted to escape, but how could Xing Feng let them escape? Each punch was heavier than the last, and each kick was fiercer than the last. With a loud roar, the outsider pounced at Lei Xingfeng. He also understood that even if he couldn't kill Lei Xingfeng, he had to beat him back. Only then could he save the other two. Lei Xingfeng wasn't afraid. He met the outsider's attack head-on. The two of them continued to exchange blows. When Lei Xingfeng was at Tiger Cliff Castle, he had learned barehanded combat. He had learned it for hunting. He also remembered some of the attacking methods from his previous life. In this life, after obtaining the true body, he discovered that these attacking methods could be used with the true body. Punches, kicks, knees, elbows, palms, head bashes, and even the impact of a huge body were all excellent means of attack. The true body was the greatest weapon. To be able to use this kind of weapon, fighting techniques were very important. Lei Xingfeng was very good at this. Each of Lei Xingfeng's punches and kicks caused his opponent to be in so much pain that they wished they were dead. However, when his true body was attacked, he relied on Lei Yin to absorb the pain. He didn't feel anything. This kind of battle was incomparably delightful. The outsider constantly raised magma. Large amounts of red magma smashed onto Lei Xingfeng's true body. Every time it hit, Lei Xingfeng's true body would shake a little, and the magma would be spat out. At the same time, large amounts of lightning surged out from the true body, causing arcs of electricity to appear everywhere. This lightning caused the opponent to suffer unspeakably. Every time it hit, the lightning would cause him to tremble. This slowed down his movements, allowing Lei Xingfeng to continuously find opportunities to beat him up. Every punch landed on his opponent's flesh, causing him to howl in pain. However, this person's strength was indeed very strong. One had to know that Lei Xingfeng's every punch was filled with his full strength. He couldn't wait to kill this guy in one punch so that he could help Xing Feng. At this time, a roar attracted the attention of Lei Xingfeng and the outsider he was fighting. They saw Xingfeng hugging an outsider and forcefully straightening his back. The outsider was forcefully lifted upside down by Xingfeng. Xingfeng's two hands clamped the outsider's legs and lifted him upside down. Then, with a loud roar, he directly used the outsider as a pestle and pounded him down. The other outsider attacked like a madman. Xingfeng was unmoved. He still pounded the outsider to the ground. With a loud bang, he lifted the outsider up and pounded him down again. The guy fighting Lei Xingfeng let out a mournful cry and then pounced towards Xingfeng. However, how could Lei Xingfeng let him leave? His body suddenly moved, and he rammed toward the outsider. Boom! The two huge bodies collided, causing countless flames and magma to erupt. The outsider didn't care. Even though he was knocked back repeatedly, he still charged toward Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng kicked out, directly hitting the outsider's thigh. The sky shook and the earth shook. This kick directly knocked the outsider to the ground. Taking advantage of the outsider's panic, Lei Xingfeng consecutively killed him. Xingfeng punched the alien 3 times in a row, and the alien was no longer breathing. His entire head and shoulders were smashed. Xingfeng then let go of his hand and turned to face the guy who had just punched and kicked him. He roared, "Are you done? I'll kill you." As he spoke, he pounced forward. The outsider's expression was one of extreme fear. He kept screaming. Xingfeng scolded, "What are you screaming for? Scream for me to kill you too." Actually, Xingfeng was also injured. It wasn't his body that was injured, but the fire imprint. After all, even with his strength, he couldn't withstand the attacks of the outsider. Relying on this ferocious energy, he forcefully killed one opponent and then faced the remaining outsider. It was much easier for him. Lei Xingfeng and his opponent were also fighting fiercely. The two exchanged blows back and forth. For the first time, Lei Xingfeng felt somewhat strained. Lei Yin was constantly releasing energy to maintain his true body. Lightning bolts shot out as if they were free. Balls of lightning and bolts of lightning roared, causing the entire world to tremble. As the fight continued, the aura of the outsider was weakened bit by bit. He was gradually suppressed. After all, Lei Xingfeng was still stronger than him. Of course, as the fight continued, Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin was rapidly generating new restrictions. These restrictions were generated according to the needs of the fight. This was within Lei Xingfeng's expectations. The only thing that surprised him was that many of the restrictions were restrictions that he had never heard of before. In other words, these restrictions were for the sake of battle. Only during battle would they be generated in Lei Yin's body. Lei Xingfeng was getting stronger and stronger as he fought. This was because he really didn't fight often. He especially lacked opponents who were on par with him. Only such opponents could stimulate and perfect his Lei Yin. In the past, he didn't understand this principle. But after this fight, he understood that he needed a large number of battles to stimulate his Lei Yin. This was the best way to cultivate. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng wasn't in a hurry to defeat his opponent. Instead, he kept tangling with his opponent. This kind of opponent was really hard to come by. Originally, the outsider was on the verge of collapse. Suddenly, he realized that his opponent's attacks had weakened. This gave him a chance to catch his breath. He was barely able to continue fighting with Lei Xingfeng. Otherwise, he would have collapsed. Xingfeng faced his only enemy. He laughed loudly and began to beat his opponent violently. The outsider wasn't Xingfeng's opponent at all. He wanted to escape, but was beaten by Xingfeng several times. Their speeds were about the same. Xingfeng deliberately injured his leg. Therefore, he couldn't escape at all. Xingfeng wasn't afraid of the magma. In fact, the magma even had a strengthening effect on him. Xingfeng's laughter could be heard amidst the wailing. This guy was the same as Lei Xingfeng. After discovering the secret of the seal, he no longer pursued to kill his opponent immediately. Instead, he kept attacking crazily, hoping that his fire seal would grow. From time to time, Lei Xingfeng would relax his defense and let his opponent's attacks land on his real body. This way, he would be able to generate some restrictions. These restrictions were extremely beneficial to his defense. The outsider who was fighting with Lei Xingfeng was extremely puzzled. This was because he could feel that his opponent was going easy on him. It was like a cat playing with a mouse. Lei Xingfeng didn't deliberately kill him. This was completely different from the beginning of the fight. Chapter 866. Lei Xingfeng continued to attack unhurriedly. At the same time, he was also observing Lei Yin's changes. Then, he realized that Shao Kong was also busy guiding the restriction. Although he didn't know what Shao Kong was doing, he didn't stop him. As he attacked and defended, Lei Yin's changes were huge. When Lei Xingfeng absent-mindedly sent out a punch, a fist mark suddenly appeared on the opponent's body before the punch even landed. This attack was so sharp that the outsider instantly cried out. Lei Xingfeng was surprised for a moment. Then, he sent out another punch. However, this punch didn't have the same effect as before. After a few more tries, he finally got the same effect. It was like hitting a cow from a distance. Although this punch didn't land on the opponent's body, it left a mark. Lei Xingfeng immediately realized that this was the effect of the spatial restriction. Lei Xingfeng was pleasantly surprised. This attack was quite powerful, so he continued to experiment. The outsider was in a miserable state. Countless attacks landed on his body. He didn't die, but he felt that he couldn't take it anymore. The continuous attacks made him feel like he was about to collapse. Lei Xingfeng continued to attack unhurriedly. Finally, the outsider turned around and ran. He saw that Lei Xingfeng was ruthless and wanted to kill the remaining outsider. If he didn't run now, he wouldn't have any hope of surviving. Lei Xingfeng immediately increased his attacks and shouted, "Don't let that guy escape." Lei Xingfeng coldly said, "He can't escape." The outsider had only taken 2 steps when Lei Xingfeng struck him with 2 lightning bolts from behind. His speed immediately slowed down. Lei Xingfeng took 2 steps and sent out a punch. This time, he didn't bother and used all his strength. Just the sharp sound of this punch breaking through the air was enough to make people tremble in fear. Boom, boom, boom. Like the beating of a drum, Lei Xingfeng's 2 fists took turns to strike the foreign tribesman. The foreign tribesman couldn't even cry out because his movements were slowed down by the 2 streaks of lightning. His reaction was a lot slower. This was also the result of Lei Xingfeng's high-voltage lightning. In an instant, it had extracted a large amount of Lei Yin's energy. Lei Yin was also undergoing tremendous changes. A large amount of energy crystals stored by Shao Kong began to melt rapidly, and the energy was replenished by the various restrictions in Lei Yin. Each of the punches sank into the outsider's body. One of the punches was especially powerful. Because the punch landed on the surface, the power of the punch penetrated into the outsider's body. With just this one punch, the outsider was severely injured. Xingfeng had also successfully injured his opponent. Lei Xingfeng pounced forward and grabbed onto the opponent's neck. His huge hand grabbed onto the opponent's head and twisted it forcefully. Gotcha! The sound of bones snapping could be heard as Lei Xingfeng broke the opponent's neck. This was Lei Xingfeng's killer move. The outsider's body went limp. Lei Xingfeng let go and said, "Old Xing, do you need help?" Xingfeng saw that this move was very effective and said, "No need. Watch me." He also grabbed onto the opponent's head and twisted it forcefully. As expected, the outsider couldn't resist. With his neck broken, there was basically no hope for him to live. The 2 of them stood and looked at each other. Then, they laughed out loud at the same time. This battle was carefree and unrestrained. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that the 2 of them understood a principle. The development of the seal required battle. The completion of the seal also required battle. Without battle, the seal's function was incomplete. Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to adjust the seal. However, he still needed to think about the new restrictions. He needed to remove the useless restrictions and leave the useful ones behind. He also needed to strengthen the useful ones. Xingfeng didn't have this problem. He didn't understand restrictions at all. He was already very happy to be able to add so many restrictions to the fire seal. After cultivating for so long, he already understood that the increase in restrictions in the fire seal meant an increase in strength. This was the most dangerous battle he had ever fought after advancing. Therefore, the increase in restrictions in the fire seal was very fast. Of course, it also consumed a large amount of energy crystals. After increasing the restrictions, he still needed to replenish some fire attribute materials. This was a matter for later. Therefore, Xing Feng wasn't in a hurry. Restrictions also needed time to grow. The corpse on the ground soon began to burn. Once the outsider died, his resistance to fire would completely disappear. Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng both flew up and looked at the burning fire below. Lei Xingfeng said, "I wonder what will be left after the fire." Xing Feng smiled and said, "You also know that once something is burned, the useless things will be burned to ashes." Hee, but I have thought about it. Since it is an outsider with the fire attribute, after being burned, he must have left some materials behind. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "All right, we don't have anything to do anyway. Let's wait here. The fire should be finished soon." Xing Feng said, "I'll go find some materials. Just now, we were surrounded because we found some good materials." Lei Xingfeng said, "I also want fire attribute materials." Xing Feng said, "You're not a cultivator of the fire attribute. Why do you need fire attribute materials?" Lei Xingfeng said, there are materials that cultivators don't want. Just because I don't need them doesn't mean I don't want them. At least I can exchange them for other materials." Xing Feng said, "All right, let's go together." Lei Xingfeng suddenly said, "That's not right. There are only 5 fires below. There should be 6 fires, right?" Xing Feng took a look and said in surprise, "There is indeed 1 fire missing. One ran away." Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, "I know who ran away. It's the guy I used to smash. The strongest guy blocked my attack and probably knocked him out. He's not dead." Xing Feng said, "All right, let's hurry up and find materials. I don't know if these outsiders have reinforcements." Outsiders were different from human cultivators. As long as they grew up, they were born to be powerful warriors. Therefore, there were more of them than human cultivators. This was also the reason why they were not afraid of human cultivators. Human cultivators would avoid them just because of their numbers. If there weren't many outsiders here, then it wouldn't be too big of a problem. However, if this was an area where outsiders gathered, then Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng would become targets. Therefore, they had to collect materials quickly. Lei Xingfeng seemed to have seen the material Xing Feng was looking for before. It was just that he couldn't remember it because it was so long ago. It was a kind of purple crystal in the lava. It shouldn't be an energy crystal, but a kind of fire element material. Soon, Lei Xingfeng saw Xing Feng pick up a wash basin-sized purple crystal and put it away with his fire seal. Xing Feng said with a smile, "This kind of material is very useful for fire element cultivators when they reach the high level. They need a lot of it. I didn't expect there to be so many here. Many of them are treasures." He had already released his true body and was searching in the lava lake. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and didn't say anything. He flew a few meters above the lava lake. Silver light flickered in his eyes. In an instant, he saw a purple ball of light. Lei Xingfeng didn't even need to go down. He released Lei Yin and grabbed at the air. Suddenly, a purple crystal flew out from the lava lake. Then he grabbed again. More and more purple crystals flew out and fell into his hand before disappearing. Xing Feng coincidentally turned his head and saw how Xian Feng had obtained the purple crystal. His entire body felt unwell as he widened his eyes. "Is there a mistake, you? How could you obtain the purple crystal just like that?" Then a purple-black crystal flew out and was caught by Lei Xingfeng. He said, "This one is not bad." Then he put it into his hidden lens space. Xing Feng was about to go crazy. He shouted, "Hey, it's not just not bad, it's a top-quality item." After searching for a long time, Xing Feng still didn't get any. Most of the crystals he found were ordinary ones. Only a few were treasures. There wasn't a single top-quality one. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Lucky, lucky." Another 2 top-quality crystals flew out. Xingfeng's eyeballs were about to fall out. This was luck. What kind of luck was this? He made people depressed. How could he let people continue searching? Xian Feng confirmed the light emitted by the top-quality crystals. Then he turned to the top-quality crystals. His lightning stamp had the ability to retrieve items through the air, allowing him to use them to their fullest potential. He didn't even need to come into contact with the lava lake, as pieces of the top-quality purple crystals fell into his hands. At this time, Xingfeng was sure that Lei Xingfeng must have some unknown method to get these top-quality purple crystals. Then, Lei Xingfeng found other fire element materials glowing. Therefore, he didn't just get purple crystals. He also got other things. He didn't recognize many of them, but when he saw the light, he would take them out to have a look. Lei Xingfeng relied on his spatial ability to obtain large amounts of fire element materials from the lava lake. Lei Xingfeng even used his Lei Yin to absorb some materials. Lei Yin had many restrictions that required fire element materials. Xingfeng was completely dumbfounded. After searching for so long, he didn't get many top-quality items. On the other hand, Lei Xingfeng continuously took out all kinds of top-quality items. In his eyes, there were no ordinary items. They were all good items. Xingfeng's eyes were about to turn red. However, these are found by Lei Xingfeng, not Xingfeng. Seeing that the best items were taken by Lei Xingfeng, Xingfeng had no choice but to stay away from Lei Xingfeng. He might be able to get some good materials in other places, but he was sure that he wouldn't get any if he stayed with Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng stopped after collecting a portion. These fire element materials weren't of much use to him. They were mainly for the secret sect. He then came to Xingfeng's side and said, "These are for you." He took out a portion of the top quality materials and gave them to Xingfeng. Xingfeng was pleasantly surprised. If Lei Xingfeng didn't give them to him, he wouldn't be angry at all. Giving them was a favor, but not giving them was a duty. Xingfeng understood this very clearly. He repeatedly thanked Lei Xingfeng. These materials weren't of much use to Lei Xingfeng, but they were of great use to Xingfeng. Chapter 867. The two of them circled around the lava lake. Lei Xingfeng continued to look for high-quality materials while Xingfeng followed. Sometimes, Lei Xingfeng would grab materials and let Xingfeng collect them. After circling around, Xingfeng realized that his harvest was much more than before. Xingfeng was full of praises. The two of them did not stay for long. After all, they were still wary of the outsiders. Who knew how many of them would come? The two of them did not leave this area. Instead, they flew in a different direction. After all, this was a place rich in materials. Xingfeng really did not want to leave. It was not easy to get materials. This kind of good place was worth fighting and risking their lives. Not long after, the two of them saw a huge volcanic mountain range. The entire world seemed to be burning. Xingfeng stared at the volcanic mountain range and said, "I am sure that this volcano has countless good things." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, that should be the case. The volcanoes are so dense. However, old Xing, I feel that this mountain range should be the territory of the outsiders, right?" Xingfeng was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Even if it is the territory of the outsiders, we still have to go. Otherwise, it would be a waste. This kind of resource-rich area is not found everywhere. It is too rare." Lei Xingfeng understood him. If this was a lightning-type resource area, he would have the same thoughts. No matter what, he would have to go through it. Otherwise, he would not be able to sleep when he returned. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "All right, old Xing, since you want to go crazy, I will go crazy with you." "Huh." Xingfeng also laughed. They were two Tao saints. Why would they need to be afraid of the outsiders? He was instantly filled with pride and said, "Let's go. Let's go." The two of them flew up and quickly flew towards a volcanic mountain range. As the number of volcanoes increased, the ground was filled with lava. It was like a dense network of rivers. The steam from the lava kept pushing the two of them up. Flying in the air, due to the heat, the two of them were able to fly with ease. Other than the outsiders, there were also creatures in the magma. However, they couldn't fly, so the two of them could only see their backs occasionally. Basically, they couldn't see their complete forms. Then there were the outsiders. So far, the two of them had only seen 6 foreign experts. Because of this, the two of them were quite relaxed. Soon, they entered the mountain range. Looking at the densely packed volcanic craters from high up in the sky, It was simply too nauseating. There were too many of them. Among them, 60% of them were spewing flames and magma, while a small number of them were extinct. Some of them were clearly glowing with various colors. Lei Xingfeng knew that it was the brilliance of various materials. He said, "Follow me." The two of them landed in the crater of a huge, extinct volcano. It was still extremely hot here. Lei Xingfeng said, "There's a lot of good stuff here, let's dig." Because it was underground, he couldn't use the spatial restriction to extract it, so he had to dig it out first. Of course, it wasn't impossible to use the spatial restriction to extract it, but it would consume too much energy, so he couldn't bear to do it. After revealing its true form, the two giant hands plunged into the ground and forcefully lifted it up. Instantly, a large hole appeared in the ground, and a large amount of materials could be seen. Xingfeng was very smart. He asked, "A Feng, where should I dig?" Lei Xingfeng said, 20 steps forward, then 10 steps to the right, and you can start digging." Xingfeng was very obedient. Whatever Lei Xingfeng said, he would do. At this point, he was completely convinced of Lei Xingfeng's ability. As long as he listened, he would be able to get rich. Following Lei Xingfeng's instructions, they walked to the destination. Xingfeng released his true form and started digging. As expected, he dug out all kinds of materials, all of which he needed. The two of them dug happily. Lei Xingfeng's digging was completely different from Xingfeng's. He dug one spot at a time, aiming for the best materials. Moreover, he always succeeded. There were all kinds of top-grade materials. If Xingfeng was beside him, he would probably be angered to death. After spending half a day, Lei Xingfeng stopped digging. Xingfeng was still working energetically. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, there aren't many good things left here. There's no need to continue digging." Xingfeng stopped and sighed. "If this was in the past, I wouldn't stop until I've dug up this mountain." Lei Xingfeng heard this and sweated profusely. He felt that this fellow was unable to endure his thirst. He said, "We'll have to stay here for a while. In the future, we might not be able to come here again. Let's dig as much as we can. However, we've already dug up most of the good things here. There's no need to continue. Let's go somewhere else." Xingfeng also said in high spirits, "All right, let's go somewhere else." "Ha! Let's go." The two of them flew out of the mountain pass and continued deeper into the volcanic mountain range. They both knew that as long as you were patient, you could definitely find a lot of materials. There would definitely be materials that they needed. Even though Lei Xingfeng was of the lightning attribute, most of the materials here were of the fire attribute. In fact, he could still use some of them. Along the way, the two of them didn't fly very fast. Lei Xingfeng was constantly searching. He needed to find a place with a lot of materials. This made him very picky. Xingfeng didn't have this ability. He was like a blind man touching an elephant when looking for materials. He would go wherever he found them. If he found them, it would be luck. If he didn't, it would be normal. However, after following Lei Xingfeng, he realized that as long as he dug, there would always be good things. He had never been empty-handed. Xingfeng had never felt like this before. He felt like he had directly fallen into a nest of materials. Collecting a large amount of materials would be of great help to his cultivation. This made Xingfeng smile from ear to ear. Although Lei Xingfeng had also collected a lot of materials, and his harvest was even better than Xingfeng's, it wasn't of much help to him. However, there were many fire attribute cultivators. In the secret sect, most of the cultivators were of the fire attribute. Therefore, these materials were of great help to the cultivators of the secret sect. As they went deeper into the mountain range, large volcanoes began to appear. More and more giant volcanic craters that were thousands of meters tall gradually appeared. There were large gullies that were filled with flowing magma. The temperature here was extremely high. Even Lei Xingfeng felt a little strained. He had to rely on Lei Yin to withstand the heat. It was too hot. Xingfeng had a leisurely look on his face. It was too comfortable. This was the kind of place Xingfeng liked to stay. Even if he cultivated, it would be very fast. However, this wasn't the time to cultivate. The two continued to search and excavate seriously. Even in a place filled with flames and magma, Lei Xingfeng still found a lot of materials that he could use. This made him feel very amazed. This place was a typical fire attribute paradise. The materials that could be produced weren't limited to fire attribute materials. After a period of searching and excavating, Lei Xingfeng became more and more certain. There were also thunder attribute, earth attribute, and metal attribute materials in the production area of fire attribute resources. Of course, there were relatively fewer thunder attribute materials. The two searched and plundered along the way. Soon, they arrived at a large canyon. There were all kinds of large canyons in other places. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng had seen many of them, so they didn't think much of them. However, when they entered this large canyon, they couldn't help but praise good. The two cliffs were less than a few hundred meters apart. There was a low-lying area in the middle. It wasn't a river that flowed, but slowly moving red magma. This was the first time Lei Xingfeng had seen such a spectacle. A stream of red magma flowed slowly under the canyon. This visual effect was really awesome to the extreme. This was a large trumpet mouth. The entrance was narrow, but the inside was wide. It was like a split gourd. As soon as the two flew in, they saw a shocking scene. Along the cliffs, there were numerous holes. Countless outsiders were going in and out of them. When they saw the two flying in, they immediately let out sharp whistles. The outsiders here were different from the ones they had met before. They were much smaller in size. None of them were more than 30 meters long. Many of them were submerged in the magma. When they saw the two flying in, they hurriedly climbed out of the magma and drilled into the holes in the cliffs. Lei Xingfeng said, "It seems like we've barged into an outsider's nest." Xingfeng said, "Should we retreat?" Lei Xingfeng noticed a detail. In the middle of the magma flow, there was a huge rock about 100 meters tall. When they had just entered, many outsiders had surrounded it. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flashed. He knew that he had found a treasure. He said, "How can we retreat? I want the rock in the middle." Xingfeng learned his lesson and said, "No problem. Give me half." Lei Xingfeng said, "Damn, you want the rock too?" Xingfeng laughed and said, "Haha, what you want is good stuff. Of course, I won't let it go." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and shook his head. The treasure should be hidden in the rock. He said, "Let's each take half." "No problem. All right, do you want the top half or the bottom half?" Xingfeng was stunned. He thought for a while, but he didn't know how to answer. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll give you a chance. You can choose first." Xingfeng hesitated for a long time. He didn't know whether to choose the top half or the bottom half. After a while, he said, "Okay, you choose first." Lei Xingfeng said, "You won't regret it?" His eyes were full of ridicule. Xingfeng's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't have a choice. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, you choose. I won't regret it." Lei Xingfeng released his real body and fell into the lava. The lava was unexpectedly deep, reaching more than 50 meters. However, Lei Xingfeng's real body was more than 100 meters tall. The lava only reached his waist. Xingfeng also landed and released his real body. He smiled and said, "You go first. I'll follow." Lei Xingfeng didn't care about the foreigners around him. He crashed into the huge rock in the middle. Boom! The huge rock was unexpectedly sturdy. It didn't break from the first hit. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng retreated and prepared for the second hit. Heads popped out from all the holes. The foreigners' eyes were full of hatred. Even Lei Xingfeng didn't understand why they hated human cultivators so much. Boom! The second hit. Chapter 868. The entire canyon was shaking. The force behind this strike was enormous, but even so, the boulder didn't break. Lei Xingfeng was depressed. How was he going to get the top half? He didn't believe it. Lei Xingfeng retreated again. Xingfeng laughed unkindly. At this time, before Lei Xingfeng could hit the boulder for the third time, countless outsiders rushed over. They were definitely going to risk their lives. Xingfeng shouted, "I'll stop them. You don't have to worry about it." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, then you do it." This time, he retreated slightly further, hoping to use his speed to hit the boulder. Groups of outsiders, according to Xingfeng and Xingfeng's point of view, were all underage outsiders. Anyways, they belonged to the category of weaklings with weak attack and defense. Compared to the 6 big fellows from before, they were far inferior. Xing Feng swept around. Anyone who came close to him was lifted up and thrown away. The lucky ones fell into the lava, while the unlucky ones smashed into the cliff. 2 20-meter-long little guys tried to stop Lei Xingfeng from hitting the boulder, but they were sent flying by Lei Xingfeng. Then, Lei Xingfeng's huge true body hit the boulder. After the 3rd strike, Lei Xingfeng finally heard the cracking sound. Although it didn't break, he saw the hope of breaking it. They retreated once again. This time, even more outsiders gathered and attacked the 2 of them madly. However, because they were too weak, they couldn't touch the 2 of them at all. The 2 of them didn't kill them either. Instead, they simply tossed them aside. After the 4th strike, Lei Xingfeng didn't use his true body to hit the boulder. Instead, he punched continuously. After a dozen punches, the boulder finally broke. Lei Xingfeng grabbed it and put it into his hidden Luan space. Xing Feng rushed over. He immediately checked the broken section and shouted, "Wow, this is what I need. A phone, help me block them. I want to dig." Xing Feng's eyes almost popped out. This thing was definitely a treasure, but he couldn't tell how much Lei Xingfeng had collected. But there were still many traces left behind. It was enough for him to use. Lei Xingfeng helped block the random attacks. He didn't care about these harmless attacks. He just didn't want them to affect Xing Feng. Xing Feng started digging. Then, he became flustered and exasperated. He couldn't dig. This thing was hard to the extreme. He used all kinds of methods, but he couldn't move it. He was so angry that he screamed. Lei Xingfeng grabbed people and threw them away while saying, "Xingfeng, you don't know how to use the fire seal to collect it directly." Xing Feng immediately reacted and used the fire seal to absorb the energy. This kind of forceful absorption was one of the methods of the seal. Basically, every high-level cultivator knew how to do it. However, this method of absorption had its drawbacks, which was that it consumed a lot of energy. Therefore, most cultivators were unwilling to do it. This time, Xing Feng didn't care about the energy crystal. This thing was so important. It was very helpful to the fire seal. He couldn't give it up. Using the fire seal to forcibly absorb energy also had its disadvantages. It would miss some of the materials. But Xing Feng couldn't care less. Due to the fire seal's strong power, the whole broken section exploded. Some of it was absorbed, while the rest fell into the magma and disappeared. The Outlanders let out cries of despair, each of them attacking without fear of death. Xing Feng shouted, "Is it over? It's over. Let's go." Xing Feng said unwillingly, "Why don't I kill all these little bugs?" Lei Xingfeng said, "This place is a treasure. It doesn't matter if you kill these little bugs or not." Killing people also required energy, which was why Xing Feng was too lazy to do so. Only those that came close were thrown out by Xing Feng. Most of them were thrown towards a cliff. If they were smashed to death, then so be it. If they weren't, then they were lucky. Xing Feng quickly put the fire seal back in his real body and said, "Forget it, let's go." Although he was a little unwilling, he was still quite satisfied with his harvest. The 2 of them rushed out. Not many of the outsiders had died, but many of them had been heavily injured. After being recognized, they had been smashed into the cliff walls and were half dead. Because there were no experts at home, the Outlanders could only watch as the 2 destroyed their race's sacred object. Seeing the 2 swagger out, even if they were furious, they didn't dare to go up and seek death. They could feel that the 2 couldn't kill them, but they didn't want to. These Outlanders weren't stupid. If they kept harassing them, they would really be courting death. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng quickly got rid of the Outlanders and changed directions. Anyway, this place was too big. It was impossible to search the whole place. They could only wander around randomly. If they were lucky, they might find some good treasures. They didn't have a specific place to go. The 2 wandered around the volcanic area. They found a few Outlanders, but there was no one who could compete with them. Lei Xingfeng joked, "The ones we killed were the strongest Outlanders here." Xing Feng said, "It's possible." "You don't say. This is only a continent, but there are so many experts. The 2 of us came from outer space. How big is that place?" It's just the two of us. Lei Xingfeng thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. In such a big place, only he and Xingfeng had cultivated to their current realm. There might be others, but he hadn't seen or heard of them. This was a very small place, but there were actually people who could compete with them. If it was only Xingfeng fighting alone, it would be hard to say. To be able to nurture such outstanding outlanders, this continent's resources had reached a dazzling level. Even the ordinary beasts and herbivores had become abnormally strong. This was something that couldn't be seen in outer space. Lei Xingfeng was a little puzzled. Is it the same in outer space? The two looked at each other, revealing a trace of excitement. If that was the case, their cultivation wouldn't be a problem. Xingfeng thought for a while and said, "It's difficult, very difficult. Actually, there's a big problem. Why did the experts build a transmission array to come here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "That's not clear, but we don't need to think too much about it. When we reach the outer space, we'll know what kind of environment it is and what kind of experts there are." Xingfeng said, "We don't know how long it'll take to get there." Lei Xingfeng said, "No matter where we go, we'll get there sooner or later. There's no need to rush. This place is really rich in resources, so we'll have to stay for a long time." He wanted more time to let the hidden sex people excavate more resources. He might not have such an opportunity in the future. Xingfeng wasn't in a hurry. He said, "Let's take it slow. After I perfect the dual flame seal, I need to accumulate materials to design my third flame seal. I don't know when I'll have enough materials. The materials for the third flame seal are all high-quality goods. Just thinking about it gives me a headache." Lei Xingfeng didn't have this problem. He had ready-made Leiyin, and not just one. He had a pile of Leiyin. All he needed to do was modify the Leiyin, redesign, and inspire the Leiyin. It would also take a lot of materials, but he was much better than Xingfeng. The amount of materials Xingfeng needed was already enough to make people despair, not to mention the large amount of high-quality materials. This was simply a nightmare to collect. Therefore, this kind of resource couldn't be given up no matter what. Spending a bit of time wasn't a problem for the two of them. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't plan to stay with Xingfeng. He said, "Old Xing, there shouldn't be any danger here. There shouldn't be any foreign experts. You continue to collect materials. I'll go look elsewhere." Xingfeng blurted out, "Let's go together." Lei Xingfeng said, "Old Xing, you need fire elemental materials, and I need thunder elemental materials. There aren't many suitable materials for me here. Are you sure you want to go to another place with me and waste such a suitable place to collect materials?" Xingfeng was stunned. After a while, he said, "You don't want to continue here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Nonsense. Everything here is what you need. I don't need much." Xingfeng said dejectedly, "You're right. Okay. You go." He was a bit reluctant. It wasn't that he didn't want Lei Xingfeng to leave, but he didn't want to leave Lei Xingfeng's ability to discover mineral deposits. Lei Xingfeng was very straightforward. After saying goodbye, he immediately flew out. Xingfeng was stunned for a long time before he started running around the mountain again. Even if he didn't have Lei Xingfeng's ability to find mineral deposits, he had been collecting materials for many years. He had his own experience and methods. Of course, his efficiency couldn't be compared to Lei Xingfeng's. Even so, Xingfeng knew that collecting materials here was much more efficient than before. There were materials all over the ground. It was up to him to find what he needed. Moreover, all high-level cultivators had a skill, which was to use their seals to determine where the materials they needed were. This was very troublesome. One had to keep the fire seal activated at all times and maintain a state of cultivation. This was very frustrating. Therefore, this method couldn't be used for long. As long as one could find a place with good materials and release the fire seal to absorb it, one would be able to determine if the materials were needed or not. Lei Xingfeng left Xingfeng and continued flying forward. If he hadn't met Xingfeng by chance, he wouldn't have traveled so far with him. However, because the materials they needed were different, and Lei Xingfeng had to take care of the secret door, the two of them were much better than going alone. Now, of course, he had to go alone. About 7 days later, Lei Xingfeng rushed out of the volcanic area. He didn't search for materials along the way and just kept flying forward. After coming out of the volcanic area, there was an endless primitive forest. There were countless unbelievably large plants and huge herbivores and carnivores. The most troublesome thing for him was the birds, especially the birds of prey. They often treated Lei Xingfeng as food. Chapter 869. Therefore, after entering the primeval forest, as long as he flew above the forest, there would be raptors trying to eat him. Of course, they were all killed by Lei Xingfeng every time. Although he needed to use his true body to kill the beasts, Xian Feng was annoyed that he had to do this every time. However, he didn't have any other choice. The animals here were all incomparably large while his original body was too small. Unless he released his true body, there was no comparison. In the forest, Lei Xingfeng was not afraid of the huge animals, but he was annoyed by the various insects, especially the ants. Each of them was bigger than his body, and there were many ants that were 3 to 4 meters long. Once he killed one, there would be a group of them, and he could not kill them all. In the end, he could only leave. Lei Xingfeng was forced to walk in the forest by the raptors, but in the end, he was forced to fly out of the forest by the insects. He simply did not know what to do. He could not kill all the animals. Lei Xingfeng was not bored to this extent, so his actions became very strange. Once he was attacked, he would immediately choose to escape. It was not that he could not win, but that he did not want to be entangled. It was better not to do things that were laborious and unrewarding. The journey was quite tiring. All kinds of animals and insects saw Lei Xingfeng as if they saw a meal. Every one of them tried to taste him. For this reason, Lei Xingfeng either killed them or flew away. It was just that the more he walked, the more sullen he felt. Lei Xingfeng finally could not bear it and directly released his real body. He rampaged through the forest, scaring away all the animals and insects. As soon as his real body appeared, a huge momentum was revealed. These insects and animals were very sensitive and immediately knew that this big guy was not to be trifled with. After getting rid of the animals and insects, Lei Xingfeng finally felt better. It was just that using his real body to travel was too extravagant. Although the energy to maintain his real body could be endless, it would still consume a lot of energy. It was not that easy to maintain his real body. However, Lei Xingfeng had no choice but to release his real body. Otherwise, there would be more troubles. The huge real body walking in the forest was definitely like a tank driving into a small forest. Lei Xingfeng actually forced a path out. Trees collapsed, and with one step, countless trees and weeds were trampled. If one looked from the sky, a clear path extended from the forest. Finally, Lei Xingfeng walked out of the forest and entered another grassland. At this time, he withdrew his real body and continued to fly forward. After flying for less than half a day on the grassland, Xian Feng saw a lone red mountain peak. It was a mountain with a unique color, a scarlet red mountain. Rather than calling it a mountain, it would be more accurate to call it a giant rock. However, this rock was as big as a mountain. The most peculiar thing was its color and shape. It was a rectangular red rock. Lei Xingfeng was curious. He did not know what it was. Silver light flickered in his eyes. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng was stunned. The light was simply blinding. Lei Xingfeng had never seen this kind of light before. Even treasures did not have such intense light. Silver light. He was overjoyed. With Lei Xingfeng's experience, this thing was not just a treasure. It was a treasure that he did not know about. It might even be a super treasure. In a moment, Lei Xingfeng flew in front of the red rock. This rock was very big, about 500 to 600 meters tall. Its surface was bright red, and there were countless marks on it. The marks of being attacked were very clear. Someone had been here and tried to open the rock. Lei Xingfeng immediately made his own judgment. Lei Xingfeng's heart sank. Since someone had been here and could see that the rock was not opened, then the rock's hardness was probably not something an ordinary person could open. Releasing his true body, Lei Xingfeng tried punching. Boom! The entire rock didn't move at all. There weren't any cracks or fist marks. This was a rare sight. With Xian Feng's fist strength, even if it was such a large rock, It wouldn't be strange for him to destroy it with a single punch. This was something he could easily accomplish. However, this rock was completely different. His punch did not leave a single mark. It was like an ordinary person in his previous life punching a piece of steel. It would be strange if there was a mark left on it. And now, Lei Xingfeng had such a feeling. It must be known that ever since he had cultivated his true body, he no longer had any concept of the hardness of rocks. To him, rocks were like tofu. With one punch, it would definitely be smashed into pieces. He did not expect this rock to be so hard. After punching and kicking, Lei Xingfeng looked at the red rock and could not help but shake his head. He knew that there was a treasure inside, but this was the first time he had seen such a hard rock. In the end, he used all his methods, but he could not even leave a mark on it, let alone break it. Looking at the marks left behind by the previous person, Lei Xingfeng was shocked. Who could leave such clear marks? This person was much stronger than him. After continuously attacking, Lei Xingfeng realized that his true body had used up a lot of energy. Every time he attacked with all his strength. After more than 10 attacks, Lei Yin actually used up a lot of energy. He reluctantly stopped. As a Dao Saint expert, although he was only at the initial stage, he had not met a worthy opponent along the way. He did not expect that a huge rock would block his attack. After walking around the huge rock, Lei Xingfeng discovered a strange phenomenon. This meant that this huge rock was not local, but foreign. The reason why he came to this conclusion was because the huge rock had no roots. When he dug down, he found that there was soil under the huge rock. Although it was a few meters deep, it was because of the weight of the rock. This was a huge square. After looking around and inspecting, Lei Xingfeng was shocked. This rock was actually a whole piece. There were no cracks, and it was very smooth. Other than the marks left behind by attacks, there were no other traces of natural erosion. Of course, he had attacked many times, so he had also left behind very small marks. However, these marks made Lei Xingfeng feel very depressed. It was really embarrassing. He saw a fist mark that was actually half a foot deep. The huge fist mark looked as if it was carved into the huge rock. It was absolutely clear. One could only imagine how strong this person was. After thinking for a long time, Lei Xingfeng could not think of a way. He also tried to use his spatial skills to try and retrieve the thing in the huge rock. However, after a few tries, he failed. Nothing was retrieved. Such a huge rock could not be stored in the hidden lens space. No matter how high one's cultivation was, one could not store a mountain in the hidden lens space. Thinking about the hidden lens space, Lei Xingfeng's heart moved. He had an extra treasure, the mirror world. Perhaps he could store it in the mirror world? Mobilizing the core power of the mirror world, Lei Xingfeng reached out and placed his hand on the huge rock. He secretly prayed that it would work. Regardless of what this thing was, if he could store it in the mirror world, when his strength reached a certain level, how could he not be able to open it? In an instant, with a strange sound, the huge rock disappeared without a trace. On the ground of the mirror world, there was suddenly a huge red rock. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Ha ha, I can't open it. I'll take you. Ha ha." He proudly looked at the huge square pit on the ground. Although it was not deep, it was flat as if it was man-made. It was incomparably solid. Lei Xingfeng took a look and immediately bent down. The huge palm of his true body began to bombard the ground. He began to destroy the entire mark. He believed that it would not be long before this place was full of weeds. Following the disappearance of the boulder, water slowly flowed in, quickly forming a puddle of mud. Due to Xian Feng's destruction of the edges, the entire ground had become swamp. Not long after, no one would know that there was a boulder here. Even those who had been here before would wonder if they had found the wrong place. No one could take away such a heavy rock. The only possibility was that this was not the right place. That was why Lei Xingfeng was so happy. In any case, Lei Xingfeng felt that he had made a profit. However, he still did not know what this thing was. He would wait for an opportunity in the future to look for clues in this regard. After a moment, Lei Xingfeng left this place and continued to fly forward. As he flew, Lei Xingfeng was still thinking about the huge red rock. This rock was definitely strange. Just by looking at the dazzling silver light, it was definitely a peerless treasure. Could it be that the hidden teleportation of the teleportation array was for this huge rock? Lei Xingfeng was shocked by his own thought. How much would it cost? He thought that it was unlikely. However, he did not know that he had guessed the purpose of the teleportation array. It was built for this huge red rock, because it could not be opened, because it could not be moved, and because the cost was too high. A teleportation array had to be built to enter this continent. Although Lei Xingfeng guessed it, he still did not know what this huge rock was for or what it was used for. However, his hobby of collecting things acted up. He simply put this huge rock into the mirror world. This was his luck. Of course, there were very few people in the mirror world now. They were all mining on this continent. Even ordinary people would enter to mine, not to mention practitioners. Those who could come back were those who were allowed to rest. As for injuries, no matter what kind of injuries they had, they would all be healed with Lei Xingyao's help. This huge red rock was different from the half of the rock he had obtained before. That one could be broken, but this one could not be moved. In other words, these two were completely different things. This difference, when Xian Feng's fist landed on the red rock, he completely understood. Chapter 870. Lei Xingfeng placed the half-broken stone he had obtained in his yard. This thing was huge, and he believed that any fire-type cultivator would naturally be attracted to it. Lei Xingfeng didn't need to go back personally. He could arrange it with the help of the Mirror Realm's core. As Lei Xingfeng's cultivation increased, his control of the Mirror Realm improved. In the past, he had to do many things himself, but now he only needed to think about it. Relying on the connection between Lei Yin and the Mirror Realm, Lei Xingfeng became more and more proficient, especially the ores excavated by all the members of the secret sect. These ores had to be placed in the Mirror Realm and were not allowed to be collected privately. In fact, there were no private collections. Many ores required high-level cultivators to condense. Low-level cultivators had no way to purify them. Moreover, most of these materials were not recognized by low-level cultivators. Even high-level cultivators might not recognize them, so it was useless to collect them. As long as something entered the Mirror Realm's warehouse, Lei Xingfeng could retrieve it at any time. No one could stop him. Lei Xingfeng continued to move forward in this magical land. When Lei Xingfeng discovered a large, intertwined, super-large, or vein, he began to feel numb. There were too many good things here, and it was really difficult to excavate them all. After setting up a teleportation point, he directly notified the people in the Mirror Realm and sent a group of people to excavate here. When Lei Xingfeng discovered several large or veins in succession, he realized that there were not enough people in the secret sect. The more places he went, the more materials and or veins he found. Especially with his eyes, he found all kinds of rare materials that others could not find. Due to the increase in materials, Lei Xingfeng began to have an idea. He planned to cultivate Lei Yin. The Lei Yin had reached a certain level and required a large amount of materials to form restrictions. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng also understood a principle. If he wanted to overlay Lei Yin, then he would have to erase the restriction on this Lei Yin. Of course, he couldn't erase all of it. He had to erase 80% to 90% of it. Only then would he be able to create a seal that matched his own Lei Yin. The previous layering method was rather reckless. If it wasn't for the fact that Lei Yin was very powerful and had 2 phases, there would probably be a problem. Because he was proficient in restrictions, when the Lei Yin grew, he consciously guided the entire Lei Yin to gradually harmonize. After a few more battles, the 2 Lei Yin gradually merged and became one. This process consumed too many materials. After fumbling around for so long, Lei Xingfeng was more and more in awe of Yin. This thing was like a seed. If it wanted to grow into a towering tree, it needed to rely on him to nurture it. One wrong step, and it could grow askew. It must be adjusted and cultivated at any time. Lei Xingfeng had become more and more aware of this truth. Moreover, the effect of cultivating here was excellent. Lei Xingfeng once tried it. It felt like flying. A restriction was produced almost every minute. No wonder the animals here could grow so big. Thinking of the size of the animals here, Lei Xingfeng's mind moved slightly, and the blackbird was caught by Lei Xingfeng. The blackbird was still a little confused. This guy was sleeping in the mirror realm and inexplicably appeared in a strange environment. Which bastard provoked this bird? The blackbird immediately saw Lei Xingfeng's face and hurriedly said, "Ah, ah, Ga, I didn't expect it to be the boss. Ga. Lei Xingfeng said, "Who are you calling a bastard?" The blackbird was frightened and hurriedly said, "No. Who called a bastard? Tell the bird will scold him." Lei Xingfeng said, "You rascal, well, this place is very good. You can move around here by yourself. Follow me closely, but don't disturb me." The blackbird flew back and forth, and then landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. It was surprised and doubtful. What is this place?" Lei Xingfeng said, "What's the matter? Is there a problem?" The blackbird said, "It's strange, the bird seems to be growing again." Strange. Lei Xingfeng said, "It seems that there are great benefits for plants and animals here. Don't be suspicious, enjoy it." The blackbird said, "Enjoy what? What do you mean?" Lei Xingfeng knew that even if the blackbird was very smart, some ideas were difficult for it to understand, and Lei Xingfeng didn't want to waste his breath. He said, "Don't worry about what it means. Just follow me, okay? If not, I'll throw you back into the mirror world." The blackbird squawked a few times and said, Don't throw the bird into the mirror world. The bird will follow, okay? The house is too lonely. There isn't even a female bird." Lei Xingfeng was surprised. This bird had this hobby? He didn't notice it before. Could it be that it had begun to develop? Female bird, what do you want to do? Want a wife? The blackbird raised its small head and said, Of course, with a companion, the bird will not be lonely." Lei Xingfeng said, "This is a bit difficult to find a bird like you again." The blackbird said, "Is it difficult? The bird thinks otherwise." Lei Xingfeng said, "Oh, why not?" The blackbird said, "There is nothing difficult in the world. I'm afraid of a bird with a heart." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, Good bird. There is nothing difficult in the world. I'm afraid of a bird with a heart. Ha ha. These words were actually said by Lei Xingfeng, but the blackbird changed one word, which made Lei Xingfeng unable to hold back his laughter. The blackbird was sometimes his happy fruit. Of course, it was also very annoying when it was noisy. After about half an hour, the bird quickly quieted down. It stopped on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and seemed unusually quiet, which surprised Lei Xingfeng. Generally speaking, as long as the blackbird stopped on the shoulder, this guy would not shut up. This was a very nagging bird. Lei Xingfeng said, "Why aren't you talking?" The blackbird said, "This place. The bird thinks it's not normal. It's really not normal, but it's good for the bird." This sentence again, Lei Xingfeng's heart moved slightly. Animals had better intuition than humans. This he had always admitted. In other words, if the bird said that this place was not normal, then it might really be abnormal. As for what was abnormal, Lei Xingfeng had no way of knowing. Lei Xingfeng was too lazy to guess whether this abnormality was good or bad for the blackbird. Anyway, if there was something wrong, he just had to throw the blackbird back in the mirror realm. It was no big deal. The blackbird no longer spoke. The whole bird seemed to be frozen. It just grabbed Lei Xingfeng's collar, motionless as if it was dead. Lei Xingfeng did not care, but continued to fly forward. Lei Xingfeng still flew in the air. He wanted to see further, so he flew higher and higher, gradually rising to the sky. During this time, he killed a bird that wanted to eat him. This continent was very big, extraordinarily big. Lei Xingfeng roamed this continent in a hurry for 10 years. During this time, he found many rare treasures and large mines. In any case, he was not going to meet up with Xing Feng for the time being. And if Xing Feng could not find Lei Xingfeng, he could not leave. During this time, Lei Xingfeng thoroughly understood the changes in the two Lei Yin. He also understood the use of many restrictions on the Lei Yin. This gave him the idea of layering a third Lei Yin. Lei Xingfeng had always thought that Dao saints with 2 true ring bodies should be considered basic experts, which meant that they had just stepped into the realm of experts. They were different from the cultivators in his hometown. This difference was determined by the overall cultivation environment. Then, with the standard of 2 true ring bodies, entering the outside world would definitely be dangerous. However, Lei Xingfeng understood that experts would always be experts. There would definitely be a limit to the number of experts in a place. The reason was very simple. Resources were limited. Resources were limited in any place, and experts used up a terrifying amount of resources. Even in a place with abundant resources, not everyone had the qualifications to cultivate to the level of an expert. This involved techniques, one's aptitude, the quality of one's master, and various other difficulties. The reason Lei Xingfeng wanted to layer a third Lei Yin was to make himself stronger. He never dared to underestimate anyone, especially in a foreign place like the outside world. After wandering for 10 years, Lei Xingfeng was almost done with his preparations. The main thing was to prepare the materials and redesign the Lei Yin. He had already begun to design the Lei Yin himself. Of course, he wouldn't refine a new Lei Yin. That would consume too many materials. He would use a ready-made Lei Yin to modify it. After finding a relatively hidden place, Lei Xingfeng began to set up restrictions. This was a compound restriction. The speed at which he set up restrictions was much faster than before. With a wave of his hand, a restriction was set up. Soon, a rather high-level restriction formation appeared. Even if an expert with 2 true ring bodies came, it would be very difficult to break it. Lei Xingfeng checked it carefully and nodded in satisfaction. He said to the blackbird, "Are you going to return to the mirror realm or stay here?" The blackbird basically ate once a month. The rest of the time, it would silently perch on Xinfeng's shoulder, not speaking at all. The blackbird cried a few times and said, "The bird is waiting outside the restriction." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Go, go." The blackbird spread its wings and flew out. Lei Xingfeng activated the restriction and returned to the center of the restriction. He quickly brought out a small wooden house from the mirror realm. In fact, this wooden house should be a wooden shed, but there were walls at the back and 3 sides were empty. This wooden shed was very small, only a few square meters in size. It was enough for a person to lie down and sleep. Lei Xingfeng sat in the wooden shed and took out a Lei Yin. This Lei Yin had undergone some processing, but the basic structure had not changed. First, he released his own 2 Lei Yin, and then used the 2 Lei Yin to affect the Lei Yin in his hand. Lei Xingfeng had always admired the 7-story pagoda Lei Yin. He didn't know how to cultivate it. 7 Lei Yin? He really didn't know how many thunder attribute materials were needed. Just thinking about it made his scalp tingle. Lei Xingfeng had a deep understanding. His own Lei Yin consumed a lot of materials. From the beginning, it was weak to the current strength. It was really a huge amount of materials. Chapter 871. As for the Lei Yin, he didn't know how many materials he had used to stack it. However, ever since Lei Xingfeng had stacked it onto his Lei Yin, he had spent a large amount of materials to fuse the 2 Lei Yin. Every time he thought about this, Lei Xingfeng felt a sense of fear. However, he had obtained so many materials this time, and many of them could be used by him. In addition, he was wary of the outside world. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng made up his mind to stack another Lei Yin. Once the 3 Lei Yin were successfully stacked, it would mean that Lei Xingfeng had successfully advanced and become a Dao saint with 3 true ring bodies. Perhaps his strength would increase greatly. Lei Xingfeng's understanding of the 3 true ring bodies was all guesswork, because he had never seen a cultivator with 3 true ring bodies. The way he dealt with Lei Yin this time was completely different from the last time. Previously, Lei Xingfeng had considered more about how to fuse the Lei Yin together and stack it successfully. This time, Lei Xingfeng had considered more about how to design the Lei Yin. Therefore, the first step was to erase most of the restrictions on Lei Yin. These restrictions had been gradually grown by the previous owner through cultivation, training, and battles. These restrictions might not meet Lei Xingfeng's requirements. Especially once Lei Xingfeng fought and cultivated, these restrictions might not be able to help Lei Xingfeng. After learning restrictions until now, Lei Xingfeng had already understood that the so-called restrictions all came from Lei Yin. Perhaps the appearance of the restrictions in the first seal meant that restrictions became the most important part of a cultivator. Ever since Lei Xingfeng had grasped the mysteries of restrictions, he had a new understanding of restrictions. He also had his own unique view of restrictions produced by seals. Therefore, he had his own unique design for the modification of Lei Yin. He had kept a few major restrictions in the original Thunder Stamp, which couldn't be erased. Once it was erased, the entire Thunder Stamp wouldn't be able to be established. It would immediately collapse, and the spiritual beings in the Thunder Stamp would also die. The phase and Lei Yin were very important to the stacking of Lei Yin. Once they died, it would be very difficult to control the stacking of Lei Yin. This also meant that the third true ring body wouldn't be formed. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng had to keep these few important restrictions and erase all the other restrictions. Lei Xingfeng relied on his two seals to forcefully remove the restrictions in the new Lei Yin. A large number of restrictions were removed. This Lei Yin had more than 1 million restrictions. Lei Xingfeng's two seals didn't have that many restrictions. In fact, when Lei Yin started stacking, the stacked Lei Yin also had a large number of restrictions. However, after stacking, Lei Xingfeng started to consciously erase the useless restrictions. This process had been ongoing and had affected Lei Xingfeng's cultivation. There were too many useless restrictions. This time, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't make the same mistake. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to erase the previous owner's restrictions. Among the 1 million restrictions, he only kept 7 restriction clusters. Each cluster didn't have more than 1,000 restrictions. In other words, 99% of the restrictions had been erased. The removed restrictions wouldn't disappear and would be automatically absorbed by the Lei Yin. Once combined with Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin, the restrictions would grow again. These restrictions were truly suitable for Lei Xingfeng. After erasing a restriction, the entire Lei Yin was trembling. This was the process of rebirth. This was the process of Lei Yin's rebirth. If this Lei Yin hadn't been obtained by Lei Xingfeng, as time passed, it would have exhausted all its energy sooner or later. At that time, this Lei Yin would have truly died. It would be impossible to use it again. Lei Xingfeng obtained this 7-story pagoda-shaped Lei Yin. Due to its extremely high level, the Lei Yin itself could circulate energy. This greatly reduced the consumption of energy. This was why it had been maintained until Lei Xingfeng obtained it. However, when Lei Xingfeng erased the restrictions, he discovered that more than 40% of the restrictions in the Lei Yin had been destroyed. It was like a river. There was no problem with the source, and there was still water flowing down, forming various main streams. However, halfway through, the water would dry up. There would be no water downstream. It would lose its function as a river. What Lei Xingfeng wanted to do was to preserve the source and erase the main streams of the tributaries. If he didn't erase it, he wouldn't know. If he erased it, he would be shocked. Every corner of the Lei Yin was filled with restrictions. One had to know that the owner of the original seal should have been a 7-ring true body. In other words, he was only 2 rings away from reaching the peak. It was unknown how many years these restrictions had been nurtured and how many materials had been used. If he wanted to erase them, just the quantity alone would dazzle Lei Xingfeng. Even if he erased a few thousand restrictions in a day, it would still take a few hundred days. Moreover, if he wanted to completely erase them without damaging the original materials, he would need the help of Shao Kong and the spirit items in the Lei Yin. Lei Xingfeng didn't expect it to be so difficult. For him, erasing wasn't as simple as destroying them, but breaking them down and dismantling them. Many things had to be preserved for his own growth. If it was just to erase them, then it was very simple. He just had to destroy them. In a day, Lei Xingfeng destroyed 200 restrictions. He was dumbfounded. This kind of efficiency was too low. However, he really couldn't bear to let Lei Xingfeng destroy the restrictions. Just seeing so many rare materials made him unable to remain indifferent. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng obediently dismantled the restrictions. Originally, he had planned to erase the restrictions, but now he could only dismantle them. The price of erasing them was too high, and he really couldn't bear it. Fortunately, he had Shao Kong's help. Shao Kong's spatial technique could help Lei Xingfeng quickly dismantle the restrictions, saving him a lot of energy. If there was an outsider present, and they saw Lei Xingfeng holding a Lei Yin without moving, with a Lei Yin suspended above his head and slowly rotating from time to time, tiny bolts of lightning would shoot into the Lei Yin in his hand. The image was really strange. Sitting there for a few hundred days, Xian Feng's speed of removing restrictions was extremely fast. He only needed to take a glance at them to know what to do. In a day, he could remove 2,000 restrictions, no more and no less. As for the secret door and Lei Yin, Lei Xingfeng couldn't care less about them. Other than eating and sleeping when he was really tired, he spent the rest of his time on the Lei Yin. He was really busy without sleep or rest. After all the restrictions at the end were dismantled, only the branch restrictions were left. In other words, they were the more important restrictions. Lei Xingfeng became more and more cautious because he realized that there were many restrictions that he didn't understand. Therefore, his speed slowed down again because he had to record these restrictions and analyze them to find out what they were used for. This time, his speed slowed down again, and it was extremely slow. Dismantling one restriction a day was already not bad. Even if he could only dismantle one restriction a day, Lei Xingfeng still felt a great sense of accomplishment because dismantling restrictions wasn't boring at all. As he studied and dismantled the restrictions, his knowledge of restrictions grew by leaps and bounds. This fusion of Lei Yin and Lei Yin's control of the restrictions in the Lei Yin was many times better than those cultivators who didn't know the reason. More than 90% of cultivators didn't understand the restrictions in the seal. Their restrictions were completely self-sustaining. It was extremely difficult for them to grow in balance, especially for the fusion seal. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng understood how difficult it was to become a super expert and have 9 seals. When a seal was refined, once it reached a certain level, it would give birth to the first restriction. Following the formation of this restriction, every time one cultivated, a new restriction would be born. Some of the restrictions would be very useful, while others would only have a small effect. These kinds of small or even useless restrictions would appear more and more as one cultivated. In Lei Xingfeng's eyes, these restrictions were useless, but they occupied some very important positions. This forced the owner of the seal to use more precious materials to expand the entire seal. And the expansion of the seal would give birth to many useless restrictions. Such a seal's efficiency would be very low, but it would require countless materials to fill it. This was the reason why cultivators had to use countless materials. Once the seal expanded to a certain level, it would basically reach its limit. Only with extremely precious materials could it expand the seal. This was a vicious cycle. In the end, the cultivator would be stuck at a bottleneck, unable to advance any further. His seal would be completely filled with restrictions, and most of them would be useless. The original owner of the Lei Yin in Lei Xingfeng's hand was quite amazing. According to Lei Xingfeng's understanding of the seal, this person's Lei Yin was very powerful. At least 50% of the restrictions were useful, and the most important ones were very good. In other words, this Lei Yin had a 50% efficiency. According to Lei Xingfeng's speculation, this was already extremely high efficiency. Using Lei Xingfeng's own Lei Yin as an example, before he understood the restrictions of the Lei Yin, his Lei Yin was only useful about 20%. After he understood the Lei Yin and knew that the restrictions in the Lei Yin could be adjusted, he gradually adjusted it to 40%. After fusing the 2 lightning stamps, Xian Feng finally understood what the seal was all about, and it had already been a long time since he had fused the 2 lightning stamps. Until now, Lei Xingfeng's own Lei Yin's maximum efficiency could be used about 65%. It would be very difficult to increase it further. This was because some restrictions, although useless, couldn't be removed. Even if the restriction looked useless, it couldn't be removed. Even if it was removed by force, once you started cultivating, the restriction would be the first to be produced. These restrictions were called auxiliary restrictions by Lei Xingfeng. Generally, when the main restriction was produced, these restrictions would follow. Of course, this was only a small portion of the restrictions. There were about 20% of the restrictions that were really useless. If one had the ability, they could be removed. If one didn't have the ability, one could only watch them occupy the space and consume energy without any effect. After refining this Lei Xingfeng's thoughts became clearer. When he looked back at his own Lei, he understood that what he did before was far from enough. His own Lei also had to be recultivated. Chapter 872. After 10 years, Lei Xingfeng finally sorted out the third Lei. During this period, he also spent a lot of time sorting out his own Lei. Among the two Lei, his own Lei took a lot of time, but the superimposed Lei took a lot of time. It was mainly to remove the useless restrictions. Some restrictions were left by the previous owner and were not very useful, so they were also removed this time. Lei Xingfeng realized that just clearing out the restrictions in the Lei was a complicated project. However, by clearing out the restrictions, he could also get some materials. These materials made Lei Xingfeng amazed. Basically, they were all treasure-level materials. He didn't know how much effort the original owner of the seal spent to obtain them. Just the materials that were disassembled, Lei Xingfeng felt that he could refine a basic Lei. It was too rich and too wasteful. Without hesitation, he transferred the disassembled materials to his Lei through Shao Kong. That was the original seal, and also the most basic seal. It required a lot of precious materials. In addition to the pagoda-shaped Lei Xingfeng also obtained other seals, including the Lei. However, the level of those seals was relatively low, so he didn't pay attention to them. However, after disassembling them, he understood that a lot of materials could be obtained from those seals. Especially with Shao Kong, there was no difficulty. Shao Kong's spatial skill was very powerful. Many materials couldn't resist disassembling under his skill. He could instantly disassemble the original materials, or even better than the original, because Shao Kong could also purify them. Lei Xingfeng went back to the Mirror Realm every year to avoid Wu Yang and the others worrying. Looking at the time, it was about time to go back. The lightning stamp was finally cleared, but to merge it, there were still a few steps. Other than the materials, he also had to inform Xingfeng, or else that fellow would go crazy. In these 10 years, Xi and Feng didn't even see him. Lei Xingfeng got up and disappeared without a trace. Through the Mirror Realm and his own secret door, he could basically go anywhere on the continent in an instant. Back at the teleportation point, Lei Xingfeng saw Xingfeng walking in circles. He couldn't help but smile. "Old Xing, were you waiting for me?" When Xingfeng saw Lei Xingfeng, it was as if he saw a relative. He rushed over and said, "Feng, what took you so long?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I was cultivating the third Lei." Xingfeng was stunned. "What do you mean? You want 3 true ring bodies?" Xi and Feng nodded vigorously. "That's right, 3 true ring bodies." Xingfeng sucked in a breath of cold air. "How is that possible?" Lei Xingfeng smiled. "How is it not possible? I've already cultivated half of it, so I want to find you and tell you." Xingfeng didn't wait for Lei Xingfeng to finish and interrupted him. "You want to stay here?" Lei Xingfeng smiled. "What if it's you?" Xingfeng said without hesitation, "Of course I'll stay." Xi and Feng nodded. "Okay." As he spoke, he suddenly disappeared. Xingfeng was still in shock when he suddenly realized that Lei Xingfeng was gone. He couldn't help but shout, Hey, how long are you going to stay?" The surroundings were silent. No one answered. Xingfeng stomped his feet. This continent wasn't small. Finding a person was like finding a needle in a haystack. He could only wait at a certain location. Otherwise, it was impossible to meet. He stomped his feet, causing the ground to collapse. Xingfeng snorted. "Are you afraid that I'll object? You ran faster than a ghost. Is there a need for that?" Xingfeng had no choice but to continue staying here. He originally planned to meet Lei Xingfeng and leave no matter what. Who knew that Lei Xingfeng would disappear after a few words? He didn't know that Lei Xingfeng had brought a whole family of people from the hidden sect to mine ores. Even after 10 years of mining, they still couldn't mine all the ores. In a hidden sect, newborns could still follow their parents to mine ores and earn some money. There were countless animals and all kinds of strange plants in this world. Under Lei Xingyao's command, they harvested and transplanted many edible plants. As for animals, a giant bison was enough for everyone in the hidden sect to eat for a few days. This place was rich in resources. Not to mention the higher-ups like Lei Xingfeng. Even ordinary people didn't want to leave. This place was very nourishing. It could be seen from the growth of the next generation. Every one of them was burly. Children who were only 10 years old were even stronger than their parents. What made Wu Yang the happiest was that he found that many of the newborns in this generation had the potential to cultivate. There were even a few children who had such good potential that even he couldn't help but sigh. Because this place was rich in resources, every child with potential could obtain a large amount of cultivation materials. It was completely different from when Lei Xingfeng entered the sect. At that time, he had to find his own materials. The hidden sect only provided him with protection and a certain cultivation method. Wu Yang and Gucci sighed every time. Although they had stopped taking in disciples a long time ago, they were still very envious of the children who were cultivating. The conditions were too good. Lei Xingfeng was basically a shopkeeper who didn't do anything. Not to mention taking in disciples. All the in-name disciples he took in the past were all transferred to others. He really didn't have time to teach them, so it could be said that he didn't have any disciples now. Lei Xingfeng returned to the mirror realm in an instant, but Xingfeng didn't notice at all. This was the advantage of controlling the mirror realm. He could come and go without a trace. It was difficult for others to find any clues. Unless there was an extremely rare space attribute, such a cultivator might be able to see something. However, Lei Xingfeng had never seen such a cultivator before. When he returned to his courtyard, there were a few people sitting in the wooden shed. Wu Yang, Gucci, Thunderstorm, Qi Meiyun, and Xi and Jiaowen were all there. The two seemed to be talking about something. Seeing Lei Xingfeng appear, Wu Yang waved and said, "A phone, come here." Lei Xingfeng walked into the wooden shed and sat down. He said, "What?" Wu Yang said, "The recently excavated mineral veins are almost done, so a lot of people are free. Are there any new mining areas now?" Lei Xingfeng took out the star python record and said, Here, and here are all large mineral veins. I was going to give them up. Now there is still time. We can excavate them." Xi and Jiaowen smiled bitterly. There are more? So they were going to let everyone take turns to rest. Qi Meiyun said, "Yes, everyone is quite tired." Lei Xingfeng said, "Aren't there a lot of steel puppet beasts in the mirror realm? Send more of them there." Qi Meiyun said, "Almost all of them have been sent. Now Jingzia is in command. She's the only one who can command well, but everyone is still very tired." Lei Xingfeng said, "Then let's take turns to rest. By the way, according to the contribution, those who have contributed a lot can take turns to rest. Those who have contributed a little can continue to dig." Qi Meiyun glanced at Lei Xingfeng and said, "A phone, you are so bad." Lei Xingfeng said innocently, "It's just a suggestion. Let them record the number of ores they have excavated and then use it to exchange for the materials they need for cultivation." Xi and Jiaowen smiled and said, "A phone, it has been like this for a long time. This is your suggestion." Lei Xingfeng also smiled and said, Haha, I forgot." Wu Yang smiled and said, "A phone, you have made a lot of suggestions. Now the secret sect is implementing them." Lei Xingfeng scratched his head and said, "I just said it casually." Qi Meiyun said, "You're so irresponsible." Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior sister, I was just saying. You took it seriously and implemented it. I don't care if the results are good or not. Haha." Qi Meiyun said, "You're so cunning." In the secret sect, Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao had never been polite to Lei Xingfeng. When the two fought, Lei Xingfeng was involved, so he was accepted into the secret sect by Gucci. Therefore, the relationship between them had always been very good, and they spoke without restraint. Lei Xingfeng arranged the ores to be excavated and said, "I plan to continue cultivating Lei Yin and strive to reach the level of 3 true ring bodies in a few years." Wu Yang said, Is it too soon? Gucci said, Are you confident? Thunderstorm said, You have to be careful. Don't force yourself. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, I know. I should succeed. Everything is under control. At this moment, he was full of confidence. Thunderstorm said, Okay. Lei Xingfeng asked someone to inform Fatty to prepare a delicious meal to reward himself. After eating happily, he returned to his room and slept for 3 days. Only then did he return to the original seal and continue cultivating. Whether a place was suitable for cultivation or not depended on the number of seals it generated. Lei Xingfeng had long known that the most suitable place for cultivation was the number of seals it generated. Moreover, they were very helpful to Lei Yin. This was the best place. This place was a suitable place for cultivation. Lei Xingfeng once again released his Lei Yin and took out the clean Lei Yin. He carefully inspected it and found that less than 1% of the original seals were retained. There were about 7,000 seals. The entire seal framework was still there, so the entire Lei Yin was empty. There were only a few important seal clusters. Lei Xingfeng nodded in satisfaction and began to use his 2 Lei Yin to connect with the Lei Yin in his hand. Since most of the seals on the Lei Yin in his hand had been removed, the entire Lei Yin had no resistance. Even if there were lightning-type phase inside, it would be useless. The difference in strength was too great. In an instant, countless lightning bolts were released from the 2 Lei Yin and struck the Lei Yin in his hand. Lei Xingfeng closed his eyes. He could already see the Lei Yin in his hand, slowly forming the embryonic form of a seal. This was the seal formed by the Lei Xingfeng connecting with the Lei Yin. Only when this seal was formed could it connect with his 2 Lei Yin. In the past, he didn't understand, but now, Lei Xingfeng was very clear. Lightning bolts struck the Lei Yin, forming the seal bit by bit. This process was very mysterious. Lei Xingfeng didn't know what the seal would look like. He could only watch it form bit by bit. It was very mysterious. Chapter 873. Lei Yin began to consume energy and materials. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng had already dismantled most of the materials, so Lei Yin didn't need him to put in materials and energy. He only needed to maintain a certain level of stimulation. Lei Xingfeng was highly focused this time. He wanted to understand what these restrictions were, what they were used for, and what their general mechanism was. Therefore, he didn't take any precautions and focused all his attention on Lei Yin. If someone attacked him at this time, he would definitely be miserable. Fortunately, he had the protection of the restrictions, so he dared to pay so much attention. After about a day, the restrictions formed a small area, and there were still individual restrictions growing. This gave Lei Xingfeng a wonderful feeling. It was as if these restrictions were like trees or weeds that were taking root and gradually growing into towering trees. First, a few restrictions were connected to form a small compound restriction. Then, these small compound restrictions continued to connect to form a medium compound restriction. When the medium compound restrictions were connected, they became a large compound restriction. Lei Xingfeng was abnormally intoxicated by this. This kind of strange growth greatly increased his understanding of restrictions. It was really wonderful. Restrictions were actually growing. From the beginning of simple restrictions, they grew to complex restrictions step by step. If Lei Xingfeng didn't know about restrictions, then it would be fine. However, he was a restriction grandmaster and had a very deep understanding of restrictions. Therefore, no matter how complex a restriction was, because it started from the simplest, he could follow the growth of the restriction and understand it until he understood the most complex restriction. Watching the production of restrictions was like learning the entire process of restrictions, from the simplest to the most complicated. 10 days later, the entire connecting restriction had grown. There were about 1,000 restrictions and formed a compound restriction array. Moreover, it began to communicate with Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin. Then, Lei Xingfeng's double Lei Yin also began to grow new restrictions. The two of them reflected each other, forming a positive restriction and a negative restriction. Lei Xingfeng observed carefully. This was the second time he was connecting Lei Yin. The first time it became a double Lei, Lei Xingfeng was actually a little confused. He was confused and succeeded in connecting the two Lei. As for the reason and the restriction, he didn't have much feeling and succeeded. But this time, Exine Feng had a direct and understandable understanding of how to connect, as well as the restrictions of the connection. He had a deep understanding of them. When his Lei also grew a restriction, the two of them produced a suction force and began to quickly get closer. At the beginning, the new Lei was still resisting. However, the restrictions in the new Lei had been erased by Lei Xingfeng by more than 99%. It simply had no ability to resist. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw the three Lei fuse together. The three Lei simultaneously emitted a dazzling silver light. The sound of electric arcs reverberated and crackled. Because the Lei and Lei Xingfeng were directly related, Lei Xingfeng's body also emitted countless lightning bolts which directly intersected with the Lei. The new Lei began to grow a large number of new restrictions. It was like a small sprout of a plant. Restrictions began to emerge one after another. Lei Xingfeng's own Lei was the same. Large numbers of restrictions emerged. This process was quite long. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't care at all. He waited very patiently. The two of them affected each other. The restrictions also began to grow from simple to complex. A large amount of materials and energy were consumed. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't need to replenish them at all. Just the disassembly of the third Lei produced an innumerable amount of materials. It was enough for the Lei to grow. The materials disassembled from millions of restrictions were enough to grow another 500,000 to 600,000 restrictions. It was inevitable that some of the materials would be destroyed. However, the materials disassembled could be used by up to 60%. This would save Lei Xingfeng a lot of trouble. Even if the disassembled materials weren't good, they could still be used. However, Lei Xingfeng's requirements were quite high. He basically didn't use these materials. After a period of brewing, the three Lei had merged together. However, this was just the beginning. Lei Xingfeng calmly observed. He watched as the restrictions in the third Lei began to spread to the second Lei. Then, it spread to the first Lei, which was his origin seal. Although the speed was very slow, it was quite smooth. Lei Xingfeng found that the restrictions in his two seals were growing faster. Soon, they surpassed the number of restrictions in the third Lei. The Fei in the third Lei also began to move. This was an instinctive action because only the development of the Lei could make it stronger. Originally, this Fei was very weak and relied on Lei Xingfeng's Big Thunder Crystal to maintain it. However, if it wanted to grow, it needed the entire Lei to grow. Only then would it have the hope of growing. After half a year, the three Lei had finally merged completely. At this time, Lei Xingfeng could cultivate. Once it started cultivating, the three Lei would be able to grow at the same time. Although the three Lei had merged successfully, Lei Xingfeng still needed to go through a long period of cultivation to let the restrictions in the Lei grow. Otherwise, the third Lei would just be an empty shell and wouldn't be effective. During the first cultivation, Lei Xingfeng started to drive the Lei. Then, Lei Xingfeng found that it required a large amount of energy. Although the third Lei also had a certain amount of energy, the merging of the three Lei required the support of external energy crystals. Lei Xingfeng didn't hesitate to release the energy crystals that he had collected. Of course, for this level of cultivation, he didn't need to use top-notch crystals like stalagmites. He only needed to use the large energy blocks that he had previously condensed. At first, Lei Xingfeng didn't care about using 10 such large energy blocks every day. However, as time passed, tens of thousands of large energy blocks made him feel a little strenuous. This was only the fusion stage. He reckoned that he would need to consume even more energy in the future. Fortunately, the mirror world had a large amount of condensed energy crystals, numbering in the millions. This was because they had discovered a large energy crystal mine locally. The energy condensed from these mines was the source of Lei Xingfeng's confidence. If he relied on the stalagmite crystals, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't be confident. Moreover, the stalagmite crystals were of a very high level. It wasn't worth it to use them for cultivation. Another year passed, and the 3 Lei Yin were densely packed with restrictions. In a year, the 3rd Lei Yin had grown 50,000 restrictions, while the 1st and 2nd Lei Yin had grown even more restrictions. This consumed 100,000 large energy crystals of Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng felt that he couldn't afford it. Not only did it consume a large amount of energy, but also consumed a considerable amount of materials. If it wasn't for the materials that the 3rd Lei Yin had brought, it would have been very difficult for him to cultivate for a year in one go. However, because of this, the 3 Lei Yin had truly merged. In other words, Lei Xingfeng had successfully reached the level of having 3 true ring bodies. This was before he released his true body. Once he released his true body, it would completely solidify. After absorbing the Lei Yin into his body, Lei Xingfeng took out some food and water and ate slowly. Generally speaking, he would eat and drink once a month and sleep once a month. After maintaining this state for so long, he felt exhausted. It was too tiring. After eating, Lei Xingfeng didn't care and fell asleep. This sleep lasted for 3 days. After waking up, Lei Xingfeng sat up and rubbed his eyes. Then, he began to observe the Lei Yin in his body. After 3 days of internal nourishment, the restrictions in the Lei Yin were still slowly growing. At this moment, it was time to use the peak-grade stalagmites. Lei Xingfeng took out 100 peak-grade stalagmites before releasing the Lei Yin. He wanted to use the peak-grade stalagmite crystals to strengthen the Lei Yin. Lei Yin flew out, and Lei Xingfeng peeled off the peak-grade stalagmite's outer shell before allowing the Lei Yin to absorb it. Inside the Lei Yin, the 3 Fays were all excited. They also hoped to absorb such peak-grade crystals as it would greatly benefit their growth. When the Lei Yin swallowed the 100 peak-grade crystals, the restrictions in the Lei Yin began to grow rapidly. In an instant, densely packed restrictions were formed. However, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that the already matured restrictions began to grow to a higher level. This was the reason why Lei Xingfeng used the peak-grade stalagmite crystals. He needed to increase the level of the restrictions. After a slight calculation, the original seal, which was the Lei Yin refined by Lei Xingfeng, already had more than 300,000 restrictions. The 2nd Lei Yin also had more than 200,000 restrictions. As for the 3rd Lei Yin, the number of restrictions was still far from enough. It needed to be cultivated slowly. It only had more than 50,000 restrictions, which was far from the number of restrictions in the other 2 Lei Yin. However, due to the peak-grade stalagmite crystals, the level of these 50,000 restrictions was forcefully increased and could be combined with the first 2 Lei Yin. This was the method of a restriction grandmaster. He knew when to put in what materials and when to guide the restrictions in the seal. Others relied on their instincts to cultivate, but Lei Xingfeng could already control his own seal and cultivate according to the requirements of the seal. In this aspect, Lei Xingfeng was already stronger than 99% of the cultivators. Just this point alone was enough to leave the other cultivators in the dust. This improvement was no small matter. When the 100 peak-grade stalagmite crystals were absorbed, the 3 Lei Yin were completely controlled. Lei Xingfeng then tried to release his true body. Boom! When his true body appeared, Lei Xingfeng was startled. It was still more than 100 meters tall, but the degree of condensation of its body had greatly increased. Whether it was the true body or the main body, it seemed to have started to change. Countless electric currents were jumping, and the entire true body was dazzling with silver light. At that moment, Lei Xingfeng understood that a 3-ring true body was at least 3 times stronger than a 2-ring true body. Chapter 874. His body flickered with lightning. His true body was 120 meters tall. Xian Feng thought for a while and slowly understood. This height was probably the limit of a 2nd or 3rd ring true body. If it was a 4th ring true body, it would probably be a bit taller. From this, It seemed that 4 rings was a threshold. 3 rings was a level, 6 rings was another level, and 9 rings should be the highest level. As for what was after 9 rings, Lei Xingfeng didn't know. He would only know when he went to the outside world. Lei Xingfeng understood this very well. He should have reached the peak of elementary. Only by increasing the number of seals in Lei Yin could he consider the next step, which was to fuse with the 4th Lei Yin. At that time, he should be able to step into the intermediate Dao Saint level. The peak of elementary Dao Saint level. This was Lei Xingfeng's current cultivation level. Lei Xingfeng really wanted to test how strong this true body was, but he didn't have any enemies to fight for now, so he couldn't just randomly attack. After moving a bit, Lei Xingfeng found that this true body was more agile and should be faster. He shook his huge palm and was very satisfied. With a light pinch of his palm, an explosive sound could be heard, as if a lightning ball had exploded. Xian Feng couldn't help but laugh. After entering this continent, he had never thought that he would be able to obtain 3 true ring bodies. This was the peak of the beginner Dao Saint realm. Lei Xingfeng believed that even in the outside world, this strength wasn't bad. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, they should be considered basic experts in the outside world. This meant that as long as they were outside, they would have to have at least 2 true rings. This group of people should have the most. In order to reach 3 true rings, a large number of people would have to be eliminated. This time, after fusing with Lei Yin and cultivating, Lei Xingfeng believed that even a 2-ring expert would have a hard time gathering the materials needed to advance. If it wasn't for the original seal, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't have been able to gather the materials for the 3rd Lei Yin. It was simply a sea of materials and energy. After cultivating once, he understood that it was really frightening. Lei Xingfeng was a bit worried. How many materials would he need to fuse with the 4th Lei Yin? Not to mention other things, just the energy crystals alone made him a bit crazy. How many energy crystals would he need? He originally planned to go back, but after thinking about it, he had to find a large energy vein and do it himself. Only then would Lei Xingfeng be at ease. In fact, he had already found 3 energy veins. There was a lot of energy here, but even so, Lei Xingfeng still felt that it wasn't enough. He needed to find a new large vein and do it himself. After reaching 3 true rings, he could start large-scale development by himself. The reason why he had this idea was mainly because Lei Xingfeng found a very big problem. Once he started fusing with Lei Yin, he couldn't stop. Otherwise, the fusion would fail. In view of the huge amount of energy used, he felt that the fusion of the 4th Lei Yin wouldn't have enough energy. He had to prepare in advance. After withdrawing his true body, Lei Xingfeng found that the energy used by his true body was even smaller. The characteristics of the energy cycle and endless cycle allowed him to reduce the energy consumption as much as possible after releasing his true body. A single seal couldn't compare to a double seal, and it was even more inferior to a triple seal. After releasing his true body, Lei Xingfeng understood. If he could fuse with 4 Lei Yin, then he would be able to maintain his true body without losing any energy. According to his guess, if he could fuse with 7 Lei Yin, which was equivalent to a high-level Dao Saint, then not only would he not lose any energy, he would also be able to absorb energy. If he could absorb energy from the outside world, then once a battle broke out, his endurance and power would be greatly increased. Perhaps he wouldn't need so many energy crystals. After putting away the surrounding seal components and seal hubs, Lei Xingfeng flew into the air and looked around. Then, he flew towards the grassland. He had found a large energy vein there. According to Lei Xingfeng's experience, there should be more. This place was very close to the grassland. Lei Xingfeng was too lazy to use the mirror realm or the hidden door. He could fly for a while and relax. He flew all the way and soon arrived at the grassland. Lei Xingfeng thought of Xingfeng and couldn't help but laugh. Xingfeng was probably going to die soon. With his level, Lei Xingfeng believed that he wouldn't be able to find many ores. He would only be able to find ores floating on the surface. He definitely wouldn't be able to find any underground ores. If he couldn't find anything, Xingfeng would definitely want to leave. However, Lei Xingfeng couldn't leave without him. The guy would probably have to wait at the teleportation formation again. Actually, Lei Xingfeng also wanted to leave, especially after fusing with Lei Yin and successfully advancing to a third ring true ring. This desire was very strong. However, he still hoped to find a large energy vein and obtain a portion of it before leaving. He killed a few birds. They were all raptors that wanted to eat Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng didn't even need to use his true body to kill these birds. A lightning ball could directly kill them. Seeing the raptors, Lei Xingfeng thought of the blackbird. This blackbird was very strange. After living here for a few years, it returned to the mirror realm. Lei Xingfeng didn't see it again and didn't know what it was doing. Lei Xingfeng had been busy dealing with Lei Yin, so he didn't pay much attention to the blackbird. No matter what, as long as the blackbird wasn't harmed, there wouldn't be any problems. After entering the grassland, Lei Xingfeng only used 10 days to find an energy vein. However, this energy vein wasn't as good as the one he found at the beginning. Even so, Lei Xingfeng planned to excavate it. After releasing his true body, Lei Xingfeng stood on top of the vein. 2 giant palms directly inserted into the ground, instantly lifting the ground and revealing the underground vein. The giant palms inserted into the ground again. Since Lei Xingfeng's true body was more than 100 meters tall, it was easy for him to bend down and insert his palms into the ground. Using 2 giant palms to stir the ground violently, the entire underground vein was shattered. Next, a large amount of lightning formed a lightning net that wrapped around the shattered ores. In the blink of an eye, he had obtained a large piece of energy crystal. Then, he used the lightning to cut the energy crystal. Each time, he could obtain 1,000 pieces. Lei Xingfeng was very satisfied. His strength had increased, and his ability had also been greatly improved. In the past, he could only condense less than 100 energy crystals at a time. Now, he could obtain thousands of energy crystals. If he excavated more, it wouldn't be impossible to obtain 2,000 energy crystals. As he continued to excavate, Lei Xingfeng could see through the ground. Therefore, he could determine the direction of the vein and know where the best ore was. Every time he excavated, he could obtain thousands of energy crystals. This made Lei Xingfeng feel a sense of accomplishment. Not every place had such an ore. The energy ores found in outer space were much smaller than these ordinary energy ores. It was completely incomparable. The energy ores here had extremely high purity and could be condensed into energy crystals of relatively high quality. This made Lei Xingfeng unable to stop. However, because the speed of excavation and condensation was extremely fast, he couldn't bear to stop. In 7 days, Lei Xingfeng collected and condensed the best part of this energy vein, obtaining hundreds of thousands of large energy crystals. As for the corners, Lei Xingfeng directly gave up. The entire ground was like a huge trench that had been blasted open. At this time, it was already filled with water, forming a long and narrow pond that was several kilometers long. Lei Xingfeng flew into the air and looked back at his masterpiece. He smiled faintly and flew into the distance, continuing to search for the ideal vein. With Lei Xingfeng's eyes, he quickly discovered another energy vein. Of course, this one wasn't a large vein, but even so, it was still very precious. In any case, Lei Xingfeng hadn't found so many energy veins in other places. As for the other veins, Lei Xingfeng automatically ignored them. Unless this vein was a lightning-type material that Lei Xingfeng needed, he wouldn't pay attention to it. After finding this vein, Lei Xingfeng continued to excavate and condense. This time, he obtained more than 100,000 energy crystals, which made Lei Xingfeng very satisfied. If he excavated a few more veins like this, it would be comparable to a large vein. After continuously excavating a few of these small energy veins, there were at least 30 to 50,000 energy crystals and at most 2 to 300,000. Xi and Feng worked tirelessly as this was the most important thing to store. One must know that the mirror world also consumed energy. As for energy crystals, Lei Xingfeng never felt that it was too much. Not only did it consume a lot of energy, but the mirror realm also consumed a lot of energy every day. Therefore, he didn't think about anything else when he came here. He just wanted to dig as much as he could. What made Lei Xingfeng regretful was that he still couldn't find the large energy vein he wanted. However, along the way, the harvest was not inferior to that of a large vein. After tossing and turning for half a year, Lei Xingfeng finally decided to leave. After all, this wasn't a place to stay for long. He returned to the mirror realm and immediately ordered everyone to return. Wu Yang said, "A Feng, there's still one more vein. We've only excavated 1/5 of it. It's a pity to leave now." Lei Xingfeng asked, "What vein?" Gucci said, "The energy vein, the one you gave us last time." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go and take a look." He didn't have any resistance to energy veins. Hearing that there were so many left, he didn't want to give up. The few of them arrived at the excavation site. Lei Xingfeng said, "Gather everyone. The rest, I'll do it." A large number of people evacuated from the mine. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "So many people?" He had been running around alone for many years. Suddenly, he saw a group of tens of thousands of people. He felt very uncomfortable. Wu Yang said, "Some of them have already evacuated. This is the last batch." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let them wait on the side. When I'm done, we'll go back together. Let them rest first. Remember to send experts to protect them." Wu Yang agreed and immediately sent people to stand guard. At the same time, he let these people rest and eat. Chapter 875. Lei Xingfeng didn't waste any time and released his true form. In an instant, his true form was more than 100 meters tall. Suddenly, everyone exclaimed. Wu Yang and the other higher-ups were already familiar with it, but the low-level cultivators and many ordinary people had never seen such a scene before. What they saw was a giant. The giant bent down, inserted 2 huge palms into the ground, and then lifted. Boom! The ground seemed to explode, and a small mountain of soil was lifted up. Then, with another lift, the underground mineral vein was exposed. What happened next shocked everyone, including Wu Yang and the others. Lei Xingfeng's hands were like a blender, forcefully stirring the mineral vein. The sound of cracking and vibrations, as well as the sound of the mineral vein breaking, was heard. Then, countless lightnings surged out, forming a huge electric net, and instantly wrapped the crushed minerals together. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Rise!" A huge ball of light rose from the ground, and countless fragments flew out from it. Popping sounds rang out, and smoke and dust billowed. After a few breaths, an enormous crystal began to appear. Not far away, people could feel the hot air blowing in their faces. In an instant, this huge crystal was cut into foot-long energy crystals, and Lei Xingfeng directly sent them into the warehouse of the mirror realm. It was an eye-opener for everyone. Exine Feng alone, with just a bit of effort, he was able to dig and refine, doing the work of countless people. Lei Xingfeng pushed forward. Because he had been doing this for a while, the process was very smooth, and his technique was very good. Everyone was stunned that he could do it like this. Wu Yang watched for a long time, and finally sighed. "A Feng has left us far behind." Thunderstorm laughed and said, "This brat is getting more and more powerful." Ha! Gucci shook his head and said, "I really didn't expect a Feng to reach this level." Wu Yang said, "Organize the evacuation of the ordinary people first, and let Exine Jolun organize it." Exine Jolun said reluctantly, "Okay, I'll organize the evacuation." Gao Yi said, "I'll open the secret door and let them go back first. It's too dangerous here." While they were talking, a wolf-shaped beast ran over from the distance, and everyone immediately exclaimed. Wu Yang said, "Let's go kill it." They immediately flew up and rushed towards the wolf-shaped beast. This wolf-shaped beast was more than 20 meters long, and its huge body stepped on the ground, making puff sounds. Lei Xingfeng only glanced at it and ignored it. With Wu Yang and the others, he wasn't worried that this beast could run into the crowd. They quickly flew in front of the wolf-shaped beast and quickly released their true forms. Immediately, the wolf-shaped beast stopped. Wu Yang and the others' true forms weren't small and were at least a few dozen meters long. They were completely comparable to the wolf-shaped beast. The wolf-shaped beast took a step back, lowered its head, and made a threatening sound. Wu Yang, Thunderstorm, and Gucci surrounded it. They slowly surrounded it and pressed forward step by step. Lei Xingfeng continued to dig, and Xi and Xiaoluan quickly organized the evacuation. Gao Yi opened the secret door, and the ordinary people lined up and walked in. After so many years of mining here, the ordinary people's bodies have been greatly improved. They didn't know what was here that could make their bodies stronger. This continent was especially beneficial for young people. Of course, Lei Xingfeng didn't know. He returned to the mirror realm to rest, eat, and communicate with the higher-ups. He basically didn't come into contact with ordinary people. Wu Yang took a step closer to the wolf-shaped beast and suddenly shouted, "Brother!" Thunderstorm released a bolt of lightning. With a thunderous sound, the wolf-shaped beast let out a howl. The lightning made its whole body tremble. Wu Yang rushed forward. Although his speed was relatively slow, he was very close. In a few steps, he arrived in front of the wolf-shaped beast and punched it. Gucci followed after him and kicked him. Punches and kicks landed on the wolf-shaped beast's body. A mournful howl sounded, and then Thunderstorm released another bolt of lightning. The lightning couldn't kill the wolf-shaped beast, but it could stop its movements. The three of them cooperated well. Wu Yang and Gucci attacked, and Thunderstorm released his lightning. The three of them took turns to beat it up. Actually, the wolf-shaped beast didn't come to eat humans. Humans were too small and weren't their food. It was attracted by Xi and Feng, because during the excavation, Xi and Feng had revealed his true body, attracting the attention of the wolf-shaped beast. Who would have thought that the three giants would suddenly appear and beat it to a pulp? After persevering for a while, the wolf-shaped beast was finally frightened and turned to run. Its speed was extremely fast, and Wu Yang and the other two could not catch up. Thunderstorm said, "Forget it. Let's go back. It's fine as long as it doesn't come back." Gucci shook his head. "It's really strong. If such a beast appeared in our hometown, it would be a disaster." Wu Yang sighed. "It's different here." Gucci said, "Yes, it's the first time I've seen a continent like this. Even my cultivation feels different. It's growing very fast. Unfortunately, it would be great if we could set up a point here. I don't know if the mirror realm can reach it." Wu Yang shook his head. "I don't think so. You didn't see a Feng's plundering. This means that he doesn't have the confidence to come back." Thunderstorm laughed. "A Feng's condensing method wastes a lot. If he could come back, he wouldn't do this." Wu Yang nodded. "At least 30%. Hee, it's really painful to see, but it's not a big deal if he wants to leave." Recalling all the normal people into the mirror world in 2 days wasn't something that Xi and Feng could control. If he did, he would only need a few hours to recall all of them. Then there were the low-level cultivators. After returning to the mirror realm, Lei Xingfeng dug with all his might. He didn't care about wastage anymore. He looked for the veins with the highest quality. In the end, even Wu Yang and the others returned to the mirror realm, leaving Lei Xingfeng to dig with all his might. After digging for over 30 days, Xi and Feng had finally managed to roughly refine the ores. Xi and Feng was also extremely tired. The harvest this time was huge. The amount of ores he had refined was at least twice as much as the ones he had dug before. Only then did he return to the mirror world. He slept for 3 days and 3 nights in his room. Only then did he return to the wooden shed and ask Jean Depeng to make a big meal for him. Only then did he feel better. Wu Yang laughed. "It's your first time doing this, right?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's too tiring. I feel like there's another way, but I haven't found it yet. I'm guessing that if there's another way, a vein like this can be obtained in a day or 2. Wu Yang, Gucci, Thunderstorm, and Gao Yi all shook their heads. Wu Yang said, "That's not possible." Lei Xingfeng said, "I have this feeling. It must be." Thunderstorm said, "If you haven't reached that level, you probably won't have this idea. Forget it. Let's not argue with a phone. Maybe there's another way out there. Lei Xingfeng said, we have to learn this method. Wu Yang couldn't help but laugh. You're just guessing. You're thinking too much. Lei Xingfeng actually didn't dare to say that there was another way out there. It was just that he was so tired from all the digging that he wanted to learn a simpler way to collect our veins. Wu Yang said, a phone, we're all back. There's nothing left outside, so we can leave now. What a pity. This place is definitely suitable for building a base. Lei Xingfeng said, we don't know how far away it is from the outside world. If it's a little closer, maybe we can come back. If it's a long-distance teleportation, then there's no way. Wu Yang said, you control the mirror world. You can handle it. If we can come back here, then that's the best. If we can't, then don't regret it. Lei Xingfeng said, okay, I'll go to the teleportation array. Everyone stay in the mirror world. Don't use the teleportation array. Otherwise, there'll be big problems. Wu Yang smiled. Don't worry, we all know. I'll personally look after the secret door of the mirror world. Lei Xingfeng disappeared quietly and appeared near the teleportation array. He flew to the edge of the restriction and saw Xing Feng sitting in the distance. He came to Xing Feng's side and said, it's time to go. Xing Feng said unhappily, I thought you weren't going to leave. You're planning to stay here forever. Her tone was a bit harsh. She was a bit angry after waiting for so long. Lei Xingfeng didn't argue. He smiled and said, let's go. Xing Feng didn't know what to do. His current strength was similar to Xian Feng's. This was what he thought. He still didn't know that Xian Feng had already advanced again. With his third true ring body, he was no longer his opponent. Xing Feng gritted his teeth and followed Lei Xingfeng into the teleportation array. He said, a Feng, you can't do this. Lei Xingfeng pretended to be dead. He said, what do you mean? Big brother Xing. Xing Feng's hair stood on end. He said, don't call me big brother. I feel better if you call me old Xing. I can't be your big brother. Lei Xingfeng knew that Xing Feng was angry. He smiled and said, don't be angry. I delayed because I advanced. Xing Feng's anger disappeared. He said in disbelief, don't be ridiculous. Really? Lei Xingfeng nodded sincerely. Really, third true ring body. Xing Feng let out a strange cry and said, impossible. Impossible. It's impossible to refine a seal in such a short time. Xian Feng laughed. It's true, in such a short time, I refined a seal and even managed to advance to my third true ring body, hee. Xing Feng's eyes lost focus. He said, how is that possible? He still didn't believe it. This is too shocking. I don't believe it. Lei Xingfeng said kindly, how about I show you my real body? Xing Feng said, okay, show me your real body. I don't believe that you can advance in such a short time. I'm already 9th true ring. Then, Xing Feng saw Lei Xingfeng show his real body. He was speechless. He pointed at Lei Xingfeng and couldn't say anything. It was too shocking. Lei Xingfeng withdrew his real body and smiled. I didn't lie to you, right? Xing Feng stood there in a daze, as if he had lost his soul. Chapter 876. Xing Feng shook his head dejectedly. After a while, he said, I really did it. Gradually, his eyes lit up. He stared at Lei Xingfeng and said, a Feng, you, how did you do it? Tell me, tell me. Lei Xingfeng withdrew his real body and said, it's very simple. I modified a Leiyin. Xing Feng was stunned. He said, someone else's seal? Lei Xingfeng said, you know that after a high-level cultivator dies, everything else might disappear, but only the seal won't disappear. Xing Feng gasped and said, you actually used someone else's seal. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, you're wrong. It's someone else's seal. Xing Feng looked at Lei Xingfeng in disbelief. After a while, he said, you're actually still alive. It's not like no one has ever tried this before. Basically, the result is death. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, that's because they don't know how to do it. Xing Feng said, how do I do it? I also have seals here. In fact, I even have 2 fire seals. I got them from the corpses I saw in the restrictive spell. I didn't want to pick them up, but I wanted to check them out, so I took 2. He was filled with endless regret. He had seen far more than just one or two fire seals. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "Okay, I can teach you." Xingfeng's eyes were red. He breathed quickly and said, "Tell me, how do I do it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's very simple. The first step." He raised a finger. Xingfeng stared at Lei Xingfeng and said, What's the first step?" He looked at Lei Xingfeng longingly. His eyes even revealed a pitiful look. This was too important to him. Lei Xingfeng said, "The first step. You have to be proficient in seals." Xingfeng opened his mouth wide. He looked at Lei Xingfeng's raised finger and wanted to break it. He said, "You're making me angry. You're making me angry, right?" Lei Xingfeng shook his finger and said, "No, this is one of the conditions that must be met, and also the most important one." Xingfeng wanted to punch the ground with his fist, but Lei Xingfeng grabbed him and said, Don't hit it. If you break the teleportation portal, we'll be stuck here forever." Xingfeng said, "Then besides the first step, what is the second step?" Lei Xingfeng grinned and said, "The second step is to be proficient in restrictions." "The third step," Xingfeng continued, "proficient in restriction spells?" Lei Xingfeng nodded vigorously. "You're right." Xingfeng stared at Lei Xingfeng for a long time before she said, "Do you know? If this is the first time I see you and you dare to tease me like this, you're dead meat." Lei Xingfeng chuckled and said, "If you dare to make a move, you're dead." I said right now. Xingfeng was terrified at once. He said, "Okay, you win." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Okay, I was just kidding. However, there's one thing that I didn't say. You do need to be proficient in restrictions, or you won't be able to deal with the restrictions in other people's seals. If you use seals that haven't been dealt with before, you won't be able to connect them together. Even if you manage to connect them together, you won't be able to deal with the restrictions inside. For cultivators, this is no different than courting death." Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "Do I still need to learn restriction spells?" Thinking about the complexity of restriction spells, he almost wanted to give up. Lei Xingfeng said, "If you don't want to learn restriction spells, it's better to cultivate your own seals. It's safer." Xingfeng said, "You're so fast." Lei Xingfeng said, "Not so fast. It still takes a lot of energy and materials. Of course, it's better than cultivating by yourself." Xingfeng rolled his eyes and said, "It's not just better. It's very good, okay?" Lei Xingfeng raised his hand and said, Okay. Are you sure you don't want to learn it?" Xingfeng said angrily, "I'll learn it. I'll King learn it. It's too important. If someone tells me that learning this stuff is good for my advancement when I'm cultivating, I'll learn it no matter how hard it is." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Okay, since you want to learn it, this is for you." Xingfeng took the Star Python record from Lei Xingfeng and said, "This is the study of restriction spells." Lei Xingfeng said, "This is the study of restriction spells that I've sorted out. Yes, this is the basic part. Copy it and give it back to me." Xingfeng took out his own Star Python record and made a copy. He said, "Is there an advanced version?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Learn it first. If you can learn it, I'll give you the advanced version. If you can't learn it, it'll be a waste to give you the advanced version." Xingfeng thought about it and agreed. He said, "Okay, I'll study hard." However, Lei Xingfeng knew that restriction spells weren't easy to learn. The reason why he could learn it was because of his special eyes. He could see the essence through the surface. Xingfeng didn't have this ability. Therefore, once he started learning, he would go crazy. He couldn't figure out the trick, especially the structure and nodes of restriction spells. Just these two things were enough to make him completely confused. Not to mention the restriction spell hub, which was divided into main and auxiliary parts. As for compound restriction spells, a large-scale compound restriction spell, dozens of restrictions were connected together. The complexity of this kind of restriction spell was enough to make people go crazy. Xingfeng looked at Lei Xingfeng doubtfully and said, "Why do I feel that your smile is a gloating expression?" Lei Xingfeng grinned and said, "Impossible. I'm rejoicing for you. You're finally on the right path." Xingfeng tilted his head and looked at Lei Xingfeng. In the end, he shook his head and said, "It doesn't feel right. Forget it. I'm too lazy to argue with you. Let's leave this place first. Lei Xingfeng said, Okay. The two of them stood on the teleportation formation. Lei Xingfeng activated the teleportation formation. In an instant, the two of them disappeared. Xingfeng looked at the teleportation formation and said, We can change to another path. Lei Xingfeng said, There were originally two paths. We've walked one, so of course we'll take the other. I was wondering why this teleportation formation was broken when we found it. Xingfeng said, I even suspected that this was a dead end. Lei Xingfeng said, Don't talk nonsense. This is definitely a way to survive. Xingfeng said, I didn't mean that. I just hope that this path can lead to the outside world. Lei Xingfeng said, We'll know when we walk. Maybe this is the way out. The two of them released their true bodies at the same time. Lei Xingfeng activated the teleportation formation. In an instant, a huge pressure froze Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng was surprised to find that the teleportation formation, which made him extremely depressed, was actually blocked by his true body. He no longer felt the pressure as heavy as a mountain. Lei Xingfeng could already move a little. However, during the teleportation formation, he couldn't move. His true body was still fixed. This was the effect of the teleportation formation. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't move. Xingfeng's face was bitter. He still felt extremely uncomfortable. However, when he saw Lei Xingfeng's relaxed appearance, he knew that his strength had increased. This teleportation formation could no longer affect him. This was an extremely long teleportation formation that shocked even Lei Xingfeng. The two of them had never experienced such a long teleportation formation before. Xingfeng, on the other hand, was having a hard time. Xian Feng had his third true ring body, and his resistance had increased greatly. This bit of pressure was nothing to him. However, Xingfeng hadn't advanced. His true ring body hadn't even reached the peak of his second true ring body. This pressure made him dizzy. He could only grit his teeth and endure. Xingfeng knew that if he dared to withdraw his true body, he would instantly be crushed into meat paste. There was no way he could survive. Thus, Xingfeng's pressure had reached an extreme. He even regretted coming out. A large amount of energy had been consumed. He had no choice but to extract energy from the fire seal to replenish his true body. He was no longer able to maintain the endless cycle formation. Xingfeng grumbled inwardly. This rate of energy consumption made him want to cry. It was too fast. The fire seal could store materials and energy. He had collected a large amount of energy crystals before, and now it was rapidly being consumed. According to Xingfeng's thoughts, by the time the teleportation formation ended, he would be a pauper. Once the energy was exhausted, Xingfeng shivered inwardly. This was the rhythm of someone dying. Who knew how long this teleportation formation would take? Lei Xingfeng still had the energy to spare to observe his Lei Yin. Under the pressure of the teleportation formation, he discovered that Lei Yin was also producing restrictions. They were a bit similar to spatial restrictions. However, they were only embryonic forms. They weren't produced this time, but had been produced a few times before. He thought to himself, this is a bit slow. I wonder if these restrictions are useful. Let Little Kong activate them. He summoned Little Kong and transmitted his thoughts to him. Then, he quietly observed. Sure enough, with the addition of Shao Kong, these restrictions grew rapidly. From the embryonic state, they quickly grew into individual restrictions. Sure enough, they were all related to space restrictions. At the same time, the materials stored in the lightning stamp were constantly being consumed. If these restrictions were useless, then Lei Xingfeng would have to waste a large amount of materials. Although he could dismantle a portion of them, at least 1/3 of the materials would disappear. However, Lei Xingfeng was still willing to take a gamble. Who knew what kind of restrictions would be produced under such pressure? Actually, Xian Feng had gradually understood the secret of lightning stamp. It was to create as many good restrictions as possible. As for those that were not good, or those that were just a waste of energy and materials, it was to get rid of them as much as possible, keeping the good ones and getting rid of the bad ones. It was that simple. The teleportation formation took longer than expected. Lei Xingfeng was still all right, but Xingfeng was truly suffering. when the spatial restrictions of the teleportation formation suddenly exerted force. Even Lei Xingfeng was shocked. The two of them were shot out and appeared in the void. The two of them shot out like lightning in the void. What was going on? The two of them didn't dare to withdraw their true bodies. Their huge true bodies were just two small dots in the void. They were like flying bullets. This time, they didn't see any teleportation formation or land. They were shot out by the teleportation formation in the void. At this moment, Xingfeng's true body almost collapsed. Fortunately, he managed to mobilize the energy in the fire seal in time and barely maintained his true body. Chapter 877. The two of them flew through the sky like meteors. Because they were shot out at the same time, the two of them were still very close to each other. Seeing a planet appear, Lei Xingfeng immediately became excited. This wasn't the continent he had seen before, but a planet. He had a concept of planets in his previous life. Xingfeng, on the other hand, was pitiful. He didn't have the concept of a planet. When he saw a huge ball flying towards him, he was so scared that his eyes widened and he stared at the planet. Lei Xingfeng noticed sunlight and turned his head to look. Sure enough, there was a star. This was the world he could understand. The original world was difficult for him to understand. This was the world Lei Xingfeng had lived in his previous life. The two of them flew towards the planet. They didn't fly over by themselves, but by relying on the teleportation array. This huge force made the two of them move quickly. The two of them knew that they couldn't struggle and move forward with this force. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to enter the planet. In just a moment, the two of them entered the planet's range. The faint suction force from the planet let them know that they were about to enter. Looking at this planet from the void, it was a green planet. There were very few areas that were blue, and most of it was green. In the midst of the rush, Lei Xingfeng tried to communicate with the mirror realm. When he found that the mirror realm was following them, he immediately felt relieved. Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng suddenly rushed into the atmosphere. The friction caused their real bodies to emit a red glow. Lei Xingfeng immediately released a layer of lightning to protect his real body. Xingfeng didn't do anything. He was of the fire element, so he wasn't afraid of the heat. Moreover, this was the first time he didn't need to use the energy in his fire seal. He started to absorb heat from his real body. The two of them, one in front and one behind, fell like meteorites, drawing a long line of fire in the sky. Lei Xingfeng started to worry. What happened if they hit the ground? It was too terrifying. However, their speed was no longer up to the two of them. They could only watch as their real bodies crashed down. The two of them were shot into the planet at an angle, so they streaked across the ground. Then they saw a tall mountain peak, and the two of them crashed towards it. Boom! Boom! One in front and one behind, one on the left and one on the right. The two of them were shot to the side of the cliff and directly blasted into the mountain. Lei Xingfeng's gigantic true body shot into the mountain, reaching a depth of several hundred meters, almost piercing through the mountain. Xingfeng was also in a similar situation. Fortunately, both of their true bodies were made of energy, so they didn't shatter. Both of them were dizzy and disoriented. Even with the protection of their true bodies, they weren't injured. However, both of them were still shaken. Lei Xingfeng awkwardly crawled out of the mountain. Fortunately, he could withdraw his real body. Otherwise, he would really be stuck in the mountain and unable to move. Xingfeng also withdrew his true body. This time, he had used up 30% of the stored energy in his fire seal, which made him shiver in pain. The consumption was simply too great. Moreover, Xingfeng couldn't stand the impact of the crash. He fainted for a long time before waking up. The smoke and dust dissipated after a long time. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng climbed out of the mountain. The two of them jumped off the cliff and landed on the ground. Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng looked at each other. After a while, Xingfeng said, "Feng, we seem to be out. This place is different from our home. I wonder what it's like?" He was quite nervous. Lei Xingfeng saw that they were on a planet, so he wasn't too nervous. His only worry was whether his abilities would be reduced. However, after crashing into the cliff, this worry disappeared. After crashing into the cliff at such high speed and not suffering any injuries, it proved one thing. Not only did his strength not decrease, it had probably increased by quite a bit. Xing Feng suddenly said in surprise, the secret door can't be used. Lei Xingfeng also checked the mirror world. He found that his secret door seemed to have lost its ability to teleport, but the mirror world wasn't affected. It could still be used. Xing Feng's expression turned ugly. Without the secret door, it meant that no matter where they went, they had to rely on themselves. Whether it was walking or flying, it was a far cry from the secret door. Countless rocks and broken branches were scattered on the ground. Near the big hole in the mountainside, there was a fire. The shockwave had knocked down all the surrounding trees. It was a miserable scene. Xing Feng said, "Let's go." Lei Xingfeng said, "How is it? Is it okay?" Xing Feng said, "It's okay, but the energy consumption is too high." The two of them flew up. They were surrounded by tall mountains. Then they saw a shocking scene. There were huge holes in the front and back of the mountain cliffs. The two of them looked at each other and understood. These were the holes that had been shot out. To enter this planet, they had to pass this test. If they didn't die, they would pass. Xing Feng said, "A Feng, did you notice? Our hole is the freshest." Lei Xingfeng said, "Nonsense, of course our hole is the freshest. It was just shot out." I understand." Xing Feng rolled his eyes and didn't say anything. The other holes were covered by tall trees, which meant that no one had come through the teleportation formation for a long time. Lei Xingfeng said, "That's true. It should have been a long time since anyone came here. You should know that the teleportation formation was broken. If I didn't know about seals, I wouldn't have been able to use it." Xing Feng said, "Is there anyone living here?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "How would I know? Let's go and see." Xing Feng said, "Okay, I'm just thinking that since we can't use the secret door, we shouldn't be able to get out, right?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We'll know after searching." Xing Feng nodded. "Yes, if there is, it will be nearby." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Okay, let's find it first. Let's find a way out first. Then, we'll do something else." The two of them flew into the air and circled around the entrance point. Each circle was bigger than the previous one. They spiraled outwards so that they wouldn't miss anything. Lei Xingfeng channeled lightning into his eyes. This way, he could see the traces of seals. After circling around for about 100 miles, Lei Xingfeng soon found a few teleportation formations. Lei Xingfeng called Xing Feng and quickly landed on a teleportation formation. Then, he realized that this formation was broken. Xing Feng asked, "What's wrong?" Then, he saw the broken teleportation formation and said, "It's broken again?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Let's look around. Maybe we can find another teleportation formation." "Oh, the teleportation formation here is a little different from ours. I need to study it." Lei Xingfeng seemed to understand. He said, "No wonder we didn't come out directly from the teleportation formation. It's probably because there are two worlds?" Xing Feng didn't understand at all. He said, "What two worlds?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Nothing. Let's find another teleportation formation." Xing Feng said, "Okay." But he was still thinking, what does this mean? Two worlds? Soon, Lei Xingfeng arrived at the second teleportation formation. As expected, it was another broken teleportation formation. It was obvious that it had been broken by a slap. They found a total of 5 teleportation formations, and all of them were broken. The worst thing was that these 5 teleportation formations were almost beyond repair. Only the first teleportation formation was slightly more intact. Xing Feng looked at Lei Xingfeng, who had an ugly expression, and asked, "Will we be trapped here? Can it be repaired?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "There is too little information. We need to continue searching." The two of them flew into the sky again and started searching. They continued to fly in circles around the starting point. After flying for about 2 days, Lei Xingfeng suddenly said, "Found it! There's one here." This teleportation formation was very hidden. It was under a cliff and surrounded by restrictions. This restriction was an illusion restriction. If Lei Xingfeng didn't have a pair of unique eyes, he wouldn't have found it. The two of them rushed down and landed on the ground quickly. Xing Feng stood still. He knew that he didn't know anything about restrictions, so he said, "I'll wait here. You go take a look." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Okay. This place seems to be abandoned. Or rather, someone deliberately covered it up. If we didn't come from the starry sky, we probably wouldn't have been able to reach here." Xing Feng nodded and said, "Okay. Be careful." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Don't worry. No one will be teleported here. I think this restriction is almost finished. I don't know how long it has been operating. It should be running out of energy soon." They came to the side of the restriction. It was a simple restriction. Because of its simplicity, it could last for a long time. Lei Xingfeng was very clear about this. This restriction didn't have any attack power. It was an illusion restriction. Simply put, it was invisible. In fact, if this restriction wasn't there, Lei Xingfeng might not have found this teleportation formation. However, with this restriction, Lei Xingfeng caught the tail of the horse. Any restriction in Lei Xingfeng's eyes was like a torch in the dark night. In Lei Xingfeng's eyes, this restriction was completely meaningless. If he didn't set up this restriction, he wouldn't have known that there was a teleportation formation here. He stepped in and punched lightly, breaking one of the restriction components. Immediately, the entire restriction stopped working. A small teleportation formation appeared. This was a complete teleportation formation. It was only the size of a table and could teleport one person. However, this restriction wasn't simple. Lei Xingfeng only studied it a little and couldn't help but sigh. As the restriction outside was broken, Xing Feng followed in. He saw the teleportation formation and said in surprise, "It's so small." Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't think it's small. The teleportation distance is extremely far." Xing Feng said, "Can it be compared to the restriction we teleported here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "That's impossible. One was a trans-realm teleportation. The other was a teleportation between planets. The two couldn't be compared at all." Xing Feng said, "I see." Lei Xingfeng said, "Moreover, this is a single-person teleportation formation. I can't be sure where it will teleport us." Chapter 878. Xing Feng was shocked. Ah, you mean we'll be separated?" Lei Xingfeng looked at him strangely and said, "It's normal to be separated, right? What's wrong?" Xing Feng sighed. After such a long journey, he realized that he couldn't leave Lei Xingfeng. It wasn't because he had feelings for Lei Xingfeng, but because Lei Xingfeng's knowledge of seals saved him a lot of trouble. Once he was on the road, no one would be able to help him. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Old Xing, you can't bear to leave me, right?" "Ha!" Xing Feng said, "Get lost. Who can't bear to leave you?" Lei Xingfeng smiled strangely and said, "Okay." Xing Feng suddenly had a bad feeling and shouted, "Wait, wait." Lei Xingfeng had already activated the teleportation formation. A glaring halo spread out, and Xing Feng shouted, "Wait, where are we meeting?" "You." Xing Feng had already disappeared into the teleportation formation. Lei Xingfeng smiled. The reason why he sent Xing Feng out was not to spite him, but for the people in the mirror realm. He needed a base, and this planet was a very good base. With a wave of his hand, Wu Yang, Thunderstorm, Gucci, and Gao Yi appeared. The four of them looked around curiously. Wu Yang said, "Are we here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We're here. This is a planet." In the hidden sect, there was no concept of a planet. They called any land a continent. Wu Yang said, "Planet? What's that?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's the same as a continent, but this place is bigger. I plan to make this the hidden sect's base." Wu Yang said, "Base? This is the outside world. Okay, we do need a base. A phone. Have you explored this place?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Look for the people in the secret sections. Take your people and search for the location of the base. We can't use the private secret sects here, but we can use the secret sects in the mirror world." Wu Yang tested it for a moment and nodded. "Indeed, we can't use it. If we can't use a private door, it will be very inconvenient for us to move around." Lei Xingfeng said, "Using the mirror realm's secret door is the same. Although it's a little troublesome, it's much more convenient than walking. Gucci said, "All right, let's go back and organize the manpower." Wu Yang, Thunderstorm, and Gao Yi had all returned to the Mirror Realm to organize their forces and prepare to explore this planet. Up until now, apart from a large number of plants and trees, there were also various small animals on this planet. Lei Xingfeng had not discovered any danger, so he began to study the teleportation array. This teleportation array was slightly different from the previous ones. Lei Xingfeng had no problem activating it, but he didn't just need to know how to activate it. As a cultivator proficient in restrictions, he had to clearly understand what was going on with the restrictions. With Lei Xingfeng's understanding of restrictions, even if the restrictions here were slightly different, it wouldn't be a problem for him. As long as he settled down and explored a little, he would completely understand. After thinking about it, Lei Xingfeng began to modify the teleportation array. Only after the teleportation array was modified would the original owner not use it. Of course, if this person was here, even if Lei Xingfeng modified it, he could still use it. However, the original owner was already dead, so there was no way he would come here and watch Lei Xingfeng modify the teleportation array. Therefore, after Lei Xingfeng finished modifying the teleportation array, the original owner or people who knew how to use the teleportation array were basically unlikely to use it again. In other words, this path was completely cut off. Lei Xingfeng immediately returned to the Mirror Realm and returned to the center of the Mirror Realm. He began to examine the entire planet. This was the enlightenment he gained when he modified the teleportation array. Then he understood that the Mirror Realm was not a product of their world, but a product of this world. In other words, the Mirror Realm was refined by the cultivators of this world. In the center, Lei Xingfeng could clearly feel this. Then he discovered that there were a total of 2 teleportation arrays on this planet. They were extremely small, only enough for one person to teleport. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but be overjoyed. If he set up a base here, then the most important task would be to prevent outsiders, especially high-level cultivators. Their destructive power was too great. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng appeared at the side of a teleportation array. Without hesitation, he smashed the teleportation array with his palm. Then he went to the side of another teleportation array. Similarly, Lei Xingfeng destroyed the teleportation array. This was not the biggest surprise that the Mirror Realm gave Lei Xingfeng. It was that through the Mirror Realm, he could directly go to other planets without using teleportation arrays. As long as it was a nearby planet, he could go to any planet. On the secret door of the Mirror Realm, new coordinates appeared. There were a total of 7 coordinates, which meant that he could go to 7 planets. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, he could travel to at least a few hundred continents in outer space. It was no wonder that the Mirror Realm was so useful in his hometown in outer space. It turned out that this thing could be used to travel across the stars. Lei Xingfeng was not used to the fact that there were only 7 teleportation points left. In the past, when he used the Mirror Realm, there were thousands of coordinates on it. If he was not careful, it would be easy to get confused. Now, there were only 7 coordinates for the distance. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. I'm really not used to it. However, with 7 coordinates, Lei Xingfeng could not use the small teleportation array for the time being. This small teleportation array was stored in the Mirror Realm and placed in an empty space. Once it entered the Mirror Realm, this teleportation array would completely lose its ability to teleport unless it was taken out again. Which planet should he choose? Lei Xingfeng jumped around. With so few options, he did not know what to choose. After thinking about it, he gave up. The journey here had been very tiring. Now, he would help build a base here. After all, he also had to set up restrictions at key locations to protect the people of the secret door. Back in the wooden shed in his courtyard, Lei Xingfeng asked, "Is Fatty here?" A servant said, "Big Brother Jean went outside and has not returned yet. However, he said that if you need food, someone will prepare it." Sure enough, a servant brought in all kinds of food. Of course, it was different from Jean Depang's cooking. These were all long-lasting food. Lei Xingfeng did not care. It did not matter what he ate now, as long as he was full. Lei Xingfeng ate in big mouthfuls. Sometimes, he felt that it was very tiring for him. If it were not for the mirror realm, he probably would not have been able to eat. After eating, Lei Xingfeng lay comfortably on the recliner, rocking while pondering. Although the teleportation array was small, it could teleport people to several places. It overlapped with the mirror realm, but there were also two places that did not overlap. These two places had corresponding teleportation arrays. The distance was a bit far, even farther than the mirror realm. This was not because the teleportation array was powerful, but because two teleportation arrays were connected and could teleport people further. The mirror realm was different. It directly opened the secret door and forced people to enter. The two were two different teleportation methods, so there was no difference between them. Lei Xingfeng pondered over which planet to teleport to. As he rocked the recliner, he pondered. At this time, Wu Yang and the others rushed back. They saw Lei Xingfeng's leisurely appearance. Gucci said, "A Feng is happier than us." Lei Bao laughed out loud. "A Feng should take a rest too." Wu Yang agreed. "Yes, it's been a tiring journey. It's only right for him to rest." Gao Yi said, "A Feng, what are you thinking about?" Lei Xingfeng said lazily, "I'm thinking about where to go. This world is strange, so I have to find a place to stay and figure out the situation." Wu Yang took out his own recliner and lay down next to Lei Xingfeng, saying, "Do you plan to get in touch with the cultivators here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I have to. Otherwise, I won't be able to figure out the situation here." Gucci said, "Before we leave, we have to set up the restrictions. Otherwise, it's not safe here." Lei Xingfeng said, "Have you found a suitable place to set up a base?" Gucci said, "I found 4 spots. 2 of them are cultivation bases, 1 is breeding base, and 1 is in the mountains. It's a cultivation base for low-level disciples." Wu Yang said, "This place is very, very big. There are many suitable places. Moreover, there are no humans here. It's completely primitive land. To set up a base, we need a lot of hard work and everyone's effort." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "I hope we can stay here for a long time. Let our secret sect slowly grow. Right? How are the materials here?" Thunderstorm said, "For now, it's so-so. If you have time, go and check it out. No one here is stronger than you." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Yes, I'll go and check it out when I have time. It's better to set up the base first. I think it's boring to stay in the mirror world for too long. The outside world is much bigger." Wu Yang said, "They're organizing. Now, batches of people are going out. There's also a lot of materials to be shipped out. Hee, it's enough trouble." Gucci also sighed. "Yes, it's fine for us to give up the base and set up a new one, but it's more painful for the ordinary people." Gao Yi said, "I plan to stay in the training base in the mountains for a long time. In the future, I'll teach the talented children how to cultivate." Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, "Uncle Gao, you don't plan to continue cultivating?" Gao Yi said, "Of course I'll continue cultivating. However, I'll mainly focus on the children." Wu Yang said, "This is old Gao's plan. Your martial uncle Lotzi also plans to do the same." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "All right, if that's the case, I'll pay attention to the materials you need." Gao Yi nodded and said indifferently, "Good. Actually, there's not much point in me cultivating now. I've lived long enough. It's not bad to be able to do something meaningful for the secret sect." Lei Xingfeng said with deep respect, "Uncle Gao, thank you." Gao Yi smiled. "No need to thank me. If it weren't for the secret sect, I wouldn't have reached this step. I would have died in the ruins." Wu Yang patted Gao Yi's shoulder lightly and smiled. "Old Gao, you've already developed feelings for each other in the secret sect. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."